Evening, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Commission regular meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. If I could have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will proceed to roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Guerrero. Commissioner Lopez. Here. Chair Sanchez.
Present.
Commissioner Quill.
Here.
Commissioner Liang. Vice Chair Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Wolbert. Here. Okay. Commissioner Ruiz is absent, and Commissioner Chang is just a few minutes late. We have quorum.
Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. All right. Continuing on to the administration of oath. Is there anyone wishing to speak on an item here not listed tonight? I see no one wishing to speak. We will continue on to public comments. Is there anyone wishing to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda? No? All right. Continuing on to the consent calendar. Does staff have an update for us?
Yes, I do, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the consent calendar, item number 1 is the approval of the draft minutes for the meeting of August the 13th of 2019. We do have one modification to make to that. On item number 7, which was for extension of time number 1908 and amendment to conditions 1908, if you recall, the applicant had requested a 3-year extension as opposed to staff's recommendation of 1. The approved motion and action on that was for the 3-year extension. We handed out some revised minutes, and so our revised minutes will reflect that modification. Item number 2 involves subdivision 1907 for tentative tract map number 20242 and development permit type D 19-04. It's for the property located at 6824 North Palm Avenue. The applicant has withdrawn that application. That withdrawal was done after the public notice was published in the paper and the mailers were sent out. So that's why we had to place it on the agenda, but there's no action required for this since they've removed it or withdrawn it. With that, that completes our recommendations for consent calendar. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Oliver. All right. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the consent calendar items? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as read into the record.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes. Continuing on. Continue on to public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from the staff, and then the public hearing will be opened. The applicant will have an opportunity to speak. Next, members of the public will be allowed to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and also fill out a request to speak form. The forms are located on the table near the door. When your name is called, come forward and speak into the microphone. Say and spell your name and give an address for the taped record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed, and the Planning Commission will begin deliberations and make a decision. All actions except general plan amendments and amendments to the Municipal Development Code are final actions unless an appeal is filed and a fee paid within 15 days to the Community Development Department. If you challenge the resultant action of the Planning Commission in the court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing described in the agenda or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development Department at or prior to the public hearing. All right. Continuing on to item number 3. If we could have a staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Item number 3 this evening is conditional use permit 1718. This is request to develop a multi-tenant commercial retail center, property located on the west side of Arden, just north of East Highland Avenue. It's approximately 1.5 acres in size, located within the general commercial zoning district. This is an overview of the property right now. You can see it's immediately north of the Bakers. It's located on the corner of Highland and Arden. As noted, it is commercial. It does back up to a multifamily apartment complex and across the street from other commercial and single-family residential. The request with the commercial center is threefold. The primary development on the site would be a drive-through restaurant, in this case specifically a Dairy Queen. There's also a proposed 4-unit multi-tenant retail building with no specific tenants assigned at this time, and then a future pad that would be approximately 6,000 square feet or so for another retail tenant at a later date. Was sticking on me. This is just an overview of the property looking across Arden Avenue. This is kind of going southwest across the site. You can see in the back, the image gets a little dark in the back, unfortunately. The apartment complex is to the rear, and then the other drive-through restaurant, the existing, is to the south end. This is an overview of the site. You can see located furthest to the south. This is oriented where north is to your right. So furthest to the south would be the Dairy Queen restaurant. In the center of the site, the 4-tenant retail building, and then the future pad for the later retail development would be on the north end. I do want to note, as this has been designed, this project came through kind of in conjunction with a previous project for an expansion of the 7-Eleven just to the north of the site. That was previously approved about 1.5 years ago by the Commission for an expansion of that, and then expansion of the parking area that would then connect with this center. So it would ultimately appear as one cohesive development. The elevations for the project are kind of the newer style for the Dairy Queens. If anyone's familiar with the one that recently opened up on Kendall off of Palm, this would be the same development, so same appearance. And then the multi-tenant building, specific on this one with the design, unfortunately we don't have the renderings for the 7-Eleven, but they've used the similar materials, similar style with the proposed expansion of that business, so that all the buildings will appear cohesive throughout the two sites. And the request this evening is to find that the project is categorically exempt as infill development and approve conditional use permit 1718 subject to the findings of fact and the conditions. I do have the applicant here if there's any other questions, or I'm also available to answer anything.
Perfect, thank you. I hereby open public hearing for item number 3. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? I do have a few questions, actually.
Yes.
Could you give us a little more information about PAD, retail PAD? What does that exactly entail? You know,
Yes.
you have
So,
4 units, I understand that.
What's being proposed this evening, it would be for the development of the restaurant. That would proceed fairly quickly after contingent upon approval of the project. And then the 4-tenant retail building, that would be constructed as well. The other one would be usually in a large commercial center. Sometimes you'll see graded pads, just the big dirt pads that they leave for another user to come in. Right now, there's no tenant specified for that, so they're not proposing to construct that building. But that would come in, in kind and similar architectural features as the other 2 structures.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question for staff. In
Yes.
regards to the previous 7-Eleven expansion,
Yes.
is this going to be in conjunction with that, or are these just 2 totally separate?
They're 2 separate developers, but they've been working in tandem, partially for the aesthetic concerns, making sure that the site looks kind of cohesive, and then because the 2 sites connect, just to the right-hand side in front here, this right here, the unshaded area, is the expansion of the parking lot for the 7-Eleven, and it would connect directly across the main drive aisle. So they've been working on getting their engineering and their grading and everything to comply with each other so that it can operate as one cohesive center with shared access and parking.
So are they going to have like a cooperative parking agreement,
Yes.
similar to
Yes,
the...
we would work with them, just as with any retail or any multi-tenant center where you have multiple parcels and separate ownership. There would be reciprocal access between the 2.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wasn't there some drainage issues or something like that on the previous project with the 7-Eleven?
I believe with the 7-Eleven, actually, the way it's working, This development, if I recall correctly, and maybe the developer can correct me if I speak incorrectly, there is some area, because this site does slope significantly from the top of the 7-Eleven down towards the freeway. There's drainage that they would be accepting kind of in the back where they do have some retention areas. There's also been, as an earlier part of this project, there's a lot line adjustment that's occurred where the back portion of the property, it's about 20 feet in width, that ran across all of the parcels there. That's been dedicated to the 7-Eleven property and to the center just to the north of that. So the 7-Eleven would also have the area there for their detention retention areas.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
What restaurant is locating there?
The drive-through restaurant would be a Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen?
Yes.
You have tenants for the center section
For the
already?
other 4, at this time, don't have concrete information on other tenants. Like I said, I don't know. We do have the developer. They may have some additional info.
Does the applicant know if there are other tenants or who the other tenants are?
If I could have you say your name and state your address for the record.
Oh. There we go.
Paul Peterson, Peterson Land and Development, 3164 West Kendall, San Bernardino, California.
So you were saying at this time you don't know, or?
Yeah, we have a lot of interest. We have different people that are interested in going there, but at this time I haven't signed anybody yet.
Okay. And could you put on the screen again what the architecture would look like, or what?
Yes, for the Dairy Queen, this is what it would look like. I know, unfortunately, I didn't have color elevations available for this. But as I was mentioning, if anyone is familiar with the site that Mr. Peterson had developed up along Kendall, just off of Palm, where there's the new Starbucks and then the Dairy Queen, it would be the same architecture as that building.
Okay, and the architecture for the other offices?
The other building, this has been designed specifically to match the previously approved appearance for the 7-Eleven expansion. As part of their project, they were doing an expansion and a full facade remodel. So when the two projects were first coming up together, they worked in tandem with each other to create kind of one design that would work for everyone.
And when you say landscaping, what kind of landscaping? The traditional that we usually have in these retail outlets, or?
Yes. As with all of our landscaping now, it would absolutely be drought tolerant. We do have along the frontage, it's approximately a 10-foot setback. It's all going to be landscaped, and then behind the property, behind all the buildings, then along the apartment complex, a little more dense landscaping. They do have some of their garages and parking area there, but we would still be working with them on that portion.
Okay, thank you.
If you could go back to the zoning map.
Yes.
It looks almost like Oklahoma, but sideways. That little...
little bit, yes.
That little lake there and everything. What is going to be done with that section? Because, you don't want,
Yes, so
things happening there.
this area,
Shouldn't be.
as I was mentioning with that lot line adjustment that they had completed previously, that same finger that runs to the south end used to run all the way up to the street on the north end.
Okay.
The portion to the north has been dedicated to the properties that front Arden, so they will now be maintaining that. The portion that goes to the south end, that was retained as part of this project. It's going to serve two purposes. That is where the retention basin is, or the detention basin for all of the runoff coming down the site.
Okay.
So they will have that there instead of, sometimes you'll see it right out in the landscape setback. Some places, because of the way the site sloped, they were able to put it in the back. And then that would also be left for future signage to be, advertising along the freeway.
Perfect, okay. Just because I didn't want to have, vagrants going in there or having access.
It does cut it off a little bit, but on the far left-hand side here, it does have the detention basin.
Okay.
That's what this would be. So it would be landscaped and secured for that purpose.
Okay, perfect. So it'll be gated off. Perfect.
The street, North Arden, is that a wide street, a narrow street? Is there 2 lanes going and 2 lanes coming back?
Currently, it's 1 lane each way. As part of this project, there is some dedication and some widening that the developer is doing going on the southbound side, so there would be, in the future, 2 lanes going south once the project is if it is constructed. Northbound would remain one lane. On that side of the street, we weren't able to do any kind of widening or dedications because that side does front county property, and they've retained all the rights on that. We have no ability to
Is
alter
there
that.
going to be a sidewalk in front of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, both developments, both the approved one to the north and this property, would be putting in all of the full improvements. I believe Mr. Peterson is actually working with the other developer on doing those improvements, which would be full curb gutter and sidewalk running the full length of the properties.
What is the how many feet is it from, I guess, wherever the setback is for the retail stores, across the street and to where the nearest residential home is?
You know what? Let me double check on here. From where the curb face would be proposed, it's not where it is existing because the street does need to be widened a few feet. From the front of their property, from the curb to the center of the street would be 32 feet. The other side, because it is only one lane, would be somewhere probably between 15 and 20. That's kind of typical. But that side of the street, because it hasn't been developed anytime recently, doesn't have all of the improvements in there, so the width varies just a little bit.
How would pedestrians from those neighborhoods access the Dairy Queen and so forth? There's no intersection
They would have to
street,
go
there's no
either down to
residential-
Highland Avenue or up to, I'm forgetting the name of the street just to the north.
Pomelo.
Oh, is it Pomelo?
Pomelo.
Oh,
How far is Pomelo? We wish they would go to the end of Highland and Pomelo to cross the street, but I don't think that's likely to happen.
I can tell you, from the bottom of their frontage down to Highland Avenue is approximately 200 feet. So you're looking between 300 and 400 from the base of the neighborhood down to Highland Avenue. The neighborhood does extend all the way up to Pomelo, which likely just off the map here. So, I mean, depending on which house you're looking, I'd say somewhere, 50 to 400 feet to be able to cross.
No crosswalk or anything like that?
There's no
at this time?
crosswalk or any kind of impediments imposed on this project.
Perfect. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If not, I hereby close public hearing. Yes.
Actually, I have a question for Mr. Peterson. Thank you for your time tonight. Not specifically on this site, but there's a shopping center. I believe you might have developed that site. It's north of the Paco's Taco on Highland Avenue. Is that your center by chance?
We developed that center. We originally put in a Family Dollar and a Popeye's Chicken.
Right. Do you still own that shopping center by chance?
We have sold the Family Dollar portion of it, but we still retain the Popeye's Chicken.
I see. So the building, the Family Dollar, former Family Dollar building, it's currently vacant.
Right.
Okay. So since you don't own it, I was just going to ask if there's any plan to secure or have that occupied in any way with the tenant, so
Yeah, they've been
it's not
working
being
on it, from what I
vacant,
can-
vandalized, for example.
They have been working on vigorously trying to get somebody in there. What happened was Family Dollar went in, and then Dollar Tree went across the street, and then Dollar Tree purchased Family Dollar. So then they had to close a certain amount of, and that was the one that they closed.
Thank you.
Perfect. If there's no other questions, I will entertain a motion for item number 3.
I make a motion to approve agenda item number 3 as stated in the record.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion passes. Congratulations. Moving on to item number 4, if we could have, oh yes. Oh, perfect. All right, so we have someone who is going to be abstaining from this. Juan, if we could have a staff report on that?
Thank you, Mike. Okay, I think the light is not working anymore, but it's on. So this is a proposal for a freestanding electronic message center sign for off-site advertisement. There is also a panel on the sign for on-site advertisement. This project, just to give a little background, was already approved by the Planning Commission in January. But we had to take it back because as part of the conditions of approval, the applicant had to get approval from Caltrans in order to put the sign where they wanted to put it. And Caltrans sent a denial letter for stating a couple of reasons for denial. The main reason was that it's located in what's considered or classified as a landscape maintenance district for Caltrans. And so they're going to require that the applicant has to declassify that area as a landscape maintenance district. But they did also note that in the resolution, the parcel that was noted on the resolution is actually the main parcel for that project, because there was two main parcels for the project that was approved there for the 7-Eleven. And in the resolution, we noted the main parcel, but the location of the sign will be on the second parcel. Now, as part of the approval for the whole project, those two parcels will be merged. There will be a brand new parcel number assigned to it, but we wanted to satisfy at least that portion of Caltrans' concerns and make sure that we had the correct parcel number listed. They also noted that the resolution did not explicitly state that the sign was for off-site advertisement. In that original resolution, all of the findings that we made were for off-site advertisement. That was the whole reason why we needed to actually bring a conditional use permit to the Planning Commission for approval, was for the off-site signage. But the description did not state that. So we've since gone back and placed that in the resolution. Just to give you a little idea of the signage for those of you who were not here when the sign was approved initially, there's a couple of elements to the sign. The top portion here shows the San Bernardino city seal and has the city name because this freeway interchange is noted as a gateway to the city in the city's general plan. As part of the general plan, we require that any kind of signage like this, or we encourage signage to have gateway features. So we placed that on the sign. And then, so the larger portion of the sign here, the main panel, is going to be for off-site advertisement. Once Caltrans does approve their portion of it, we'll take the project back to City Council for a license agreement so we can make sure that the city has some airtime and a few other things that we'll ask for. And then the last element is the on-site advertisement for the 7-Eleven. And you can see roughly, these are the renderings of how the sign is going to look once it's installed. This is just pictures of the existing site. It will be fully developed prior to the sign being installed. So our recommendation tonight is that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2019-056 and find the approval of the conditional use permit to be categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15303 for new construction or conversion of small structures and Section 15311 for accessory structures, and approve conditional use permit 18-04 based on the findings of fact and subject to the conditions of approval. I can take any questions.
Perfect, thank you. At this time, I'd like to open public hearing for item number 4. If anyone wishes to speak.
Madam Chair, if I, maybe we can let the record reflect that Commissioner Chang arrived in time for this public hearing item?
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome.
All right, welcome, Commissioner. We do have someone who turned in a slip. Claude Elena, if you would like to come up to the podium.
I'll go ahead and administer the oath before you speak. Anybody else that has submitted a speaker slip that would like to speak tonight, could I have you stand and I'll do the oath all at once, please? Yep. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Claude Elena, Encore Image, 303 West Main Street, Ontario, California. I'm just here on behalf of the applicant to answer any questions that you might have more specific regarding to the sign. Other than that, we're in full support of it.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? I did have a quick question. The advertising, I think we went over it in January, but just to kind of refresh, is there a filter that, you know, the advertising is going to go through? Is it going through the city? You know, what's going to be put up on the sign?
Well, during, as staff said, there'll be an agreement once we get through the Caltrans approval, Planning Commission and all that, licensing agreement as to what can be on the sign, can't be on the sign, how it'll be operated, where the city will participate on the sign, and it goes on and on and on. I'm not privy to that, but I'm on behalf of the owner. He has already agreed to that. So it's just a formality of getting that license agreement together.
Perfect, thank you.
I have a question for the staff. I'm aware that we have already an electronic sign that faces the freeway closer to downtown, right around where the Loma Linda site is.
Right.
How far away is this from this location?
I believe this site is approximately, there's two signs, two electronic message center signs along that section of the freeway. And one is approximately 2,500 feet away. The other is a little over 4,000 feet away. Our development code requires a minimum distance between any electronic message center signs of 1,000 feet, so it's well within those parameters.
So this one is at least 1,000 feet from the
Yes.
one that I just mentioned. Then you said there's a second one. Where's the other one?
So the second one is the
Toyota,
one of the dealerships, the auto dealerships
Oh,
on the
okay,
other side
further,
of the freeway.
further
yes.
south.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anyone else wishing to speak? If not, I hereby close public hearing. Oh, yes, Commissioner Wilbert.
Something I read recently, the Inland Center's going to be updated, and they're going to update their sign, I believe, as well. I don't know, I'm sure it's not up front yet.
They have actually completed
Oh, really?
the sign, yes. Yeah.
And that's, is it any conflict of what we're talking about here?
No, sir. They're not. They are not proposing off-site signage at all. So they just meet the requirements to have a standard freeway sign for on-site advertisement only.
And do they have to be in agreement to these other signs as well?
No, they don't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. If anyone else wishes to speak? If not, I will actually entertain a motion for item number 5.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 4, conditional use permit 18-04.
Moving on ahead. Getting carried away. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 5 this time. If we could have a staff report.
Oh, sorry, thank you, Chair. Item number 5 this evening is conditional use permit 19-12. This is a request to develop and operate a recreational vehicle repair facility within a new building, approximately 11,500 square feet in size. Property is located at 2205 West Highland Avenue. This is the southwest corner of Highland and Macy, and I'm on the far west end of town, just above the 210 freeway. It's just over an acre in size, zoned industrial. This is an aerial of the existing property. As you can see, sorry, this is, there we go. Highland Avenue just running to the north, Macy with the cul-de-sac just on the east side of the property, and then it does run directly above the 210 freeway. As mentioned, all of the properties immediately surrounding this are zoned industrial. The business itself is an existing RV repair facility currently operating in the city of Colton. They're looking to come into the city and build a new facility of their own. They're currently renting their other site. Their operating hours would be just typical Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, no evening or weekends. And they employ about 9 people from the local area that would be retained at this property. This is an overview of just the site looking towards the southwest, looking directly at the site with Macy running down on the left-hand side and Highland running off to the right. The proposal in front of you this evening would develop a single building located at the far back corner of the site. In this image, the intersection of Highland and Macy is on the lower right. The building is all the way on the upper left. Landscaping, fencing, and parking all along the frontages, and then the building, which would have 5 repair bays, and then a small area running off to one side, which would be for the office and public area. The way that the building has been designed, it's been oriented so that the repair bays are not going to be directly visible from people passing by on Highland Avenue. They would see the sides of the building and then the office further away. Basic floor plan for the building, 5 repair bays, small parts and storage area, and then this area, which is approximately 2,000 square feet of the building, would be for the office kind of customer area. The elevations, fairly typical for this. Stucco elevations, I believe metal finished roof. I'm sorry, I have it, and kind of decorative elements put along the base of the building just to break up a little bit of the facade. And then running from this side, this image is going to be the most important. This would be the side running from Highland Avenue. So you can see it's turned so that you cannot see the repair facilities themselves. You see the side of the building and then the glass front for the office area. And then landscaping proposed for it. There is a 10-foot setback required on all industrial development that is fully landscaped, so we would have all nice new tree frontages running along Macy and Highland Avenue. And then the request this evening, with that being said, is to find the project categorically exempt, again as infill development, and approve CUP 1912 based off the findings and subject to the conditions of approval. And with that, if you have any questions.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
I hereby open public hearing for item number 5. If there's anyone wishing to speak on this item. Commissioners, any questions? Yes. Oh, okay.
We do have the applicant here as well, the operator of the facility, if you do have any questions for them.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Commissioner.
This is just a comment on the project description, just to add clarity. The description says a request to allow the development, establishment, and operation of a recreational vehicle repair facility within a building containing approximately 11,000 square feet. That sounds to me, or it could be interpreted, this would be, the repair facility would be within an existing building of approximately 11,000 square feet. So this, I mean, just to clarify, operation of a recreational vehicle repair facility within a proposed building of approximately 11,000 square feet. That may add some clarity to that description.
We will keep that in mind on future projects. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez.
Is
Yes.
there nothing there right now?
Yes, let me skip back to the aerial here. Oh, sorry. So the site is currently vacant right now. There are some just in the general area, you do have several other automotive uses running along that stretch of Highland. There's a self-storage facility kind of across the street to the east, recycling center, and then the gas station immediately across Macy. There's the better shot. That's the property right now. It's currently a couple trees, just some vegetation, but otherwise undeveloped.
I think I read in the agenda packet that there was going to be some type of fencing and landscaping that would, to kind of the view on the street, you know, in terms of the car, what they're repairing, and could you describe what that is?
Let me skip back to the site plan. So the site would be fully fenced. The 10-foot setback that is required on all industrial development is required to be completely landscaped. Let me skip to the landscaping plan. As you can see, a number of trees, fairly dense, specifically along Highland Avenue, right at the corner, and then between the driveways along Macy. The fencing, we're still working on whether we would do block or solid along the back of the property. The fencing right along the front of the property, our development code does require that is open work when it's at the property line, as it is proposed, and that's because of some, you know, the concerns with the traffic at the corner of the property. You need to maintain that visibility. But as I was noting, the building, to account for that, the building has been oriented so that people traveling along Highland, you're not going to ever be standing on Highland looking directly into the repair bays. You'll see the parking area in front of the building. You'll be able to see the glass front for the office, but otherwise you won't be able to see the specific repair activities going on.
Is the applicant here?
Yes, we do have the applicant here.
If I could have you state your name and address for the record.
My name is Nick Benavides. Our address is 345 West 8th Street, Colton currently, and the project is 2205 West Highland.
Perfect, thank you.
Is the city of Colton going to miss you?
No comment.
Well, we're glad you're considering the city of San Bernardino. Could you describe to me what kind of fencing or what kind of landscaping to maintain, as we see now that there is nothing there, and you coming in, building a new building, and how you're going to be able to beautify more or less that corner? What plan or what are you considering?
As far as the stuff on the fencing on Highland, as they were saying that we're going to probably end up doing wrought iron with block pillars, and the facade on the pillars will match the facade on the building that we have going on the east side. Was about wainscot height on the building. And then on Macy Street, where we can have solid wall, we'll most likely have solid block wall, and you know, nice automatic gates with our signage and all that on Macy Street at the entry points there for the property. The landscaping, we don't have specific you know, trees and everything picked out yet. There is a landscape plan that was submitted. It's preliminary, and as long as that suffices for staff, then we'll probably go along with the landscape plan that was already submitted. But our goal is to make it look pretty. You know, we want the place to be nice. We want customers to want to come there, have it look inviting, not like a you know, rundown repair shop.
You said that, not me. Rundown repair shop. Would you consider trees along the wrought iron fence that?
I believe there are trees planned for.
If I may, Commissioner, the plan that we do have on the screen right now, I understand it may be a little hard to see on the television there. Along the Highland Avenue frontage, you would have the sidewalk improvements, everything similar to the other development, and then the fencing, as mentioned, typical wrought iron pilasters, but with treatments to integrate with the building. I'm sorry, I skipped that. And then the 10-foot setback that's behind that, before you get to the parking area, you can see every one of the larger circles on here is proposed as a typical tree. So the two corners, you would have kind of larger landscape squares with the larger, more prominent trees, kind of right at the intersection, and then the other side of the property. And then running between, you know, you would have a fairly consistent run of trees that would also help screen the property.
The gentleman just stated that if they make any changes or come up with a landscaping plan, that that's going to be submitted then
Yes.
to you, and you are going to review that and make sure
Yes.
that it's consistent with.
Yeah, typical
overall.
with other projects like this, we review a preliminary or conceptual landscaping plan, which is what we have in front of us, that's looking more at the general layout of things. It's looking at the amount of landscaping that's on site so that we can ensure that that meets the code requirements. As far as specific plants, that's something that typically will come once we receive the formal landscaping submittal. But what we review, in addition to the types of plants and their kind of water usage, we also have requirements for sizes of certain trees, sizes of the shrubs and ground cover, so that, as I was mentioning, we can ensure that there may be more prominent ones at the focal points, like the intersection or the the entry points to the site.
Okay. And I hope when you move to the city that you will contact our Chamber of Commerce and become a member.
Yes, of course.
Thank
We'd be
you.
happy to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one additional question.
Yes.
You said improvements on Macy and Highland. I know for the most part it goes to the center line.
Yes.
However, how their RVs are probably going to go to the right and the left direction. Could we extend that to cover the whole street rather than just the center line?
I can defer to our associate from Public Works on that. Typically, the projects will just do their frontages.
Okay.
In this instance, I know, if I'm incorrect, I know he'll be able to clarify. The section of Macy Street, that cul-de-sac portion, is already fairly improved because of the extension of the freeway where the cul-de-sac was put in.
Perfect.
As far as Highland Avenue, they really would be limited to just doing the improvements on their side.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. Just wanted to make sure that, we weren't damaging the ground or anything like that and then causing any kind of issue. Also, at one point, I think on the agenda, it said sales. Is anything going to be sold or anything? It said shop and office for the most part, but then I saw something that said sales.
I
Just wanted to clarify.
There's no vehicle sales.
Yeah.
We don't sell parts. It's just service, and we kind of bring parts in as needed. It's not like a shop.
That may have been a typo on my part.
Okay.
I apologize if that was.
No worries. All right. Anyone else wishing to speak on agenda item number 5? If not, I will close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion for item number 5.
I'd like to make a motion approving agenda item number 5, conditional use permit 19-12.
Do I have a second? I'll second that. All right. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes.
you.
Congratulations
Welcome.
and
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to item number 6. If we could have the staff report, please.
Good afternoon. Item number 6 is conditional use permit 19-14. This is proposed for the renovation to an existing tenant space, which is approximately 9,800 square feet within an existing commercial center that's approximately 42,280 square feet. To establish the establishment and operation of a charter school, this would be for Options of Youth on a parcel that's located, that's approximately 2.67 acres. The project site is 985 South East Street within the Commercial General and Transit District overlay. So Options of Youth is an approved and active charter school that provides educational services to students within grades of 7 through 12. And they do small group sessions. Their services provided are Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Saturdays only 4 Saturdays, and that's from 9 p.m. to 12 p.m. They accommodate a maximum of 45 to 50 students with approximately 11 teachers and staff. The classroom setup is approximately just 7 to 8 students per an hour per 1.5 hours, and it's only by appointment. They do a lot of at-home type of coursework, independent coursework, and independent study, and that's about 4 to 6 hours daily. So this is the location for the Options of Youth. Currently, right now, the Options of Youth is operating there as a learning center. In order for them to continue and maintain their classification through the school district, they have to go through the proper entitlement and actually move forward with doing the proper improvements to establish as a full-on school. So that's why we're here today. This is an aerial map of the location. Currently, right now, they're within the existing shopping center that has a 99-cent store, as well as some retail buildings located and an office building located within the center. This is the existing site on East Street, looking onto the site. And they're going to be doing some improvements to the exterior as well. We've conditioned them to just improve some of the landscaping that may have been, has died with time, and also just do some facade improvements in terms of just repainting the building. This is looking north on East Street. This would be looking west on East Street onto the existing Inland Center Mall and a county office building. This would be looking south onto the bakery that's there on the south side of the property. This is the existing site plan. As I mentioned, they are going to be doing with the existing landscaping. There is existing landscaping that's a little bit damaged, has died. So we have conditioned them to do some improvements and just put in some new life plans. This is the floor plan. Currently, this is the existing floor plan. They're going to be doing some minor improvements just so that they're able to meet the classification for that type of assembly. So with that, our recommendation is to adopt resolution 20. I'm sorry, I think I did a typo, sorry. To adopt resolution 2019-058, approving conditional use permit 19-14 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval, and finding that the project is categorically exempt. And then should you have any additional questions, the applicant's here to answer any of your questions or clarifications you may need.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open public hearing for item number 6. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Commissioner?
Yes.
Oh, Chair, sorry. I just wanted to clarify on the Saturday hours, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.?
Yes, so they meet only one Saturday throughout the year, and that's mainly for exam purposes for, let me pull up the information as to the type of exams. But
So like one Saturday
SAT
a month?
prepping, yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's all. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you put back the photo of the project site? It shows the 99-cent store and some
Yes,
other project. Let's go back to that one, please.
Would it be this one?
Which of those buildings will they be modifying for the charter school?
So it's currently, right now, they're occupied within this building, so they will remain within that building.
They are currently occupying that building?
They're currently occupying the building as a learning center, so when they came in originally, this was back in, I believe it was back in 20.
So we are considering this now because it's being changed to a charter school? Is that?
That's correct. So with their classification with the school district, they have to do some improvements to be able to maintain that. So they are now having to go through the entitlement process to be classified as a full-fledged operating charter school.
Is the applicant here?
Yes.
If we could have you state your name and your address, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ileana Arroyo, I-L-E-A-N-A, Arroyo, A-R-R-O-Y-O. My address, 985 South East Street, San Bernardino, 92408. And I am the principal of the Options for Youth in San Bernardino region. So currently we have 3 charter schools, 3 sites in San Bernardino area.
Could you describe what those modifications will be? Are there any modifications to the facade, or are they just to the interior?
So just a few things, we're adding, we're working on adding an extra sink for like bio labs and things like that for biology classes. Anything in regards to, when you have like the handicapped rail, we need to add like the ramps, it's just minor things like that. We're not changing anything in our operations or anything like that. All of our sites now have to have that e-occupancy. So this is our last site that we're working on to make this happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Hi, I have a few questions. You said it's going to be changed to e-occupancy. What is it now?
I'm not sure.
Currently, right now, if I may,
Yes.
currently, right now, their classification is a B occupancy, which is an office use.
And you say you have 3 charter schools in the city of San Bernardino?
3 school sites, yes.
Okay. And currently, this site is used for commercial, it's mostly commercial retail, right? Because
this.
You got the store, retail next door. That's,
So the shopping center, yes, you're able, it's primarily for commercial retail types of uses, but you're also able to establish charter schools or schools within that zone as well.
So charter schools go through DSA jurisdiction?
They go through, I believe, the school district.
Yes.
They go to through the San Bernardino Unified School District.
Okay, thank you.
So we are authorized through the San Marino Unified School District. Just this last June, we were actually reassigned for 5 extra years. So the location at 985 Southeast Street has been open for 10 years. It's been open since 2009. But since we did petition to stay for 5 more years and we got approved, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do to keep it that way.
Perfect. Okay.
May I ask you why this location? It just seems like a busy street with a mall and a shopping and the traffic. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm not understanding how charter schools work. And I'm just visualizing dropping kids on and off, pick up kids, in this busy mercantile section of the
Right.
town.
No, I understand. The funny thing is that out of all of our locations, this is our busiest location in regards to growth and enrollment. So currently, we have a little bit over 400 students that go in there. But like she mentioned, we only have like 40 to 45 students at a time because we do have 1-hour appointments twice a week. So a lot of these students are, most of them are teenagers. So we do serve 7th to 12th grade, but a lot of them are, we serve at-risk youth. So a lot of them are, being picked up or dropped off by parents, or a lot of them walk. We do give 30-day passes to our students to use the Omnitrans bus as a form of transportation. And being that the transportation is right across the street, it's really easy for them to go in and out. We have never had any issues with traffic or parking issues in the last 10 years that we've been there, but it is our busiest location.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilbert?
Excuse me. You said you've been here at this location for 10 years,
Since 2009.
and everything's functioning probably as far as access and traffic control, or everything's functioned perfectly for 10 years then?
Yes, we have grown a lot, but yes. Yes, it's a big location. It's one of our biggest locations, that we have. Being that we are so close to the school district, we're really close to San Bernardino High School, Pacific High School, and Sanji. We get a lot of our students from there.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Oh, yes.
I'd like to ask you, you mentioned that your students attend for an hour or 2? Or they don't go to school for the day?
So it is a independent study program. So a lot of the stuff that they do is at home. We do have tutors where they can come in and make appointments with their tutors. We also have small group instruction classes, which is very similar to the traditional direct instruction that we received as kids, where you have the teacher, the classroom, and the students. Our classrooms only fit 15 students at a time. giving them a little bit more of that one-on-one attention that these students need. Every single student that we have has a story, and they're all very special stories, so every single student has a very different plan. And so you'll see, I mean, if you talk to two of our students, you'll never find two students with the same exact plan. There might be a student who works full-time, who has a family to take care of, who can only come twice a week for an hour, and as long as they're able to complete what they need to complete and be successful, then we're okay with that. There might be a student who needs extra support, maybe has an IEP or a 504 plan, and might be an English learner. So then you have a student who needs a lot of support, who we will provide with a teacher, small group instruction teacher, as well as a special ed teacher and an EL specialist. So it really just depends on who the student is and what they need.
Okay. So you had mentioned you have done this for about 9 years or been in business 9 years?
Mm-hmm.
Not at this location, though, correct?
So we've been around for a very long time. So at this location, I want to say it is 2009.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think I said 2012, but yeah, it was 2009. I was off by a couple
Okay.
years. So they have been at this location. They were operating more like a learning center. And so they just were able to go in just as a B occupancy, but now with all the state requirements, they have to change the classification. So
Okay. So
they
you're
have to go through
changing the
process.
classification to a charter school is
Yes.
what we're doing? Okay. And I'm concerned about the traffic there also.
Mhm.
I've seen the traffic go in and out of that center, and I would imagine the students probably walk from there out to the sidewalk.
Mhm.
But yeah, if there's anything you can do about that traffic flow in there, it may be helpful for you.
Yeah, I sure will. We do have a security guard full-time there as well, just in case, you just never know what's out there. So the security guard walks around the sidewalk area, the street area, as well as behind the building. Because it is a standalone, we want to make sure that no one's out in the back either, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And just a quick clarification, it is the whole building, correct? This standalone, that is the charter school?
No,
No,
it's
okay.
just a parcel. Go ahead.
Yes, so it's just a suite
is a
within
suite.
that. Yes,
Okay.
yes. But it's one of the bigger suites within that building itself.
Perfect,
Yes.
okay. Yes?
So question for staff, as a charter school, wouldn't like an amenities be required, for example, for recess, things of that nature, as an established charter school? Wouldn't our code require some sort of rest area or playground, if you will? Is that specified or required anywhere in as part of the establishment?
That wasn't something that was a part of the requirement for the establishment of the charter school. We do have such a requirement when it comes to a commercial daycare center, but because the kids being serviced here are between the grades of 7 and 12, from 7th grade to 12th grade, so that's middle school, high school age, then that's not something that was required for that purpose.
And if I may, the distinction is that it's the independent study
Mhm.
format. So the students aren't there from 8 to 2 or 3, however long that they're in session, where there's breaks, lunch periods, and those kinds of things. So because it is the independent study, there isn't that particular requirement for recreational areas. You're welcome.
Perfect. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Chair
I make-
Sanchez, I'd ask you to close public comment first.
Yes, of course. If I will close public hearing at this point and entertain a motion for this item.
I make a motion that
Oh.
we adopt, that we adopt resolution number 2019-058, approving the conditional use permit 1914, based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
I'll second that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion passes. And thank you for doing this for, the students here of San Bernardino.
Thank you. I'm a resident.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to item number 7. If we could have the staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Item number 7 is conditional use permit 19-15. The proposed project is a banquet hall within a commercial, existing commercial building on an existing parcel containing approximately 1.56 acres. Oops, let me move that ahead there. It's located at 599 North East Street within the commercial regional CR2 and transit district overlay zones. The banquet hall is proposed within an approximately 18,000 square foot existing office building. It's used primarily as office suites, but currently mostly vacant with only one tenant occupying approximately 198 square feet of office space. 3,200 approximate square feet would be converted to the banquet hall by removing minimal non-bearing partition walls and doors on the first floor to allow for better accessibility to the existing bathrooms and the warming kitchen. The banquet hall will host private catered events that include an existing kitchen area that would be used for warming food only. Any catered event serving alcohol would require the caterer themselves to provide a valid ABC Type 83 license, which is for on-sale general caterers. The hours of operation would be from Monday to Thursday from 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. and Friday 4 p.m. to 1 p.m., which are all off-peak hours, and on weekends from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. with security provided if needed for each individual event. Having the off-peak hours of operation, parking would not be impeded. As per the San Bernardino Development Code, one parking space is needed per every 35 square feet of floor area. There's 94 were needed and 94 were provided. There's site access through one existing driveway along East Street and one existing driveway via West 6th Street with adequate vehicular circulation on site and paths of travel designated to ensure pedestrian safety. This is the location map showing the zoning designation, Northeast Street and 6th Street. We have the aerial map of the project site with the Feldham Library for point of reference and the County Superintendent's Office for point of reference. This is the existing site looking north from West 6th Street. As you can see, it is already landscaped and secured. This is the site looking east from West 6th Street. And this is the site looking south. Here we have the site plan with the existing landscaping already put into place with the path of travel. Let's see if I need this. Located here for the ADA parking spot space into the building. This would be the site access plan, right in and out on East Street only, with access from 6th Street both ways. This is the existing floor plan. This is what is existing now, and this is what is proposed here. The proposed banquet hall would not require any physical changes to the exterior or of the existing commercial building, and it provides adequate ingress and egress for assembly uses. Sufficient parking, it would add to the city's character and image by enhancing cultural, family-oriented, and entertainment opportunities relevant to the area as per the city's general plan. Therefore, our recommendation is the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2019-59, finding the approval of a conditional use permit 1915 to be categorically exempt under existing facilities, and approving conditional use permit 19-15 based on the findings of fact and conditions of approval. I'm here to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant is here to answer questions as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
At this point, I will open public hearing for item number 7. Anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Madam Chair. I have a question for staff in regards to the conditional use permit for this 1915. Is the ABC license component included within this proposed, or is that something that they would have to go directly?
That is something that every individual caterer would have to have before they can go ahead and have their event. It is a Type 83 license, so it's a general contractor's license just for catering services only.
So a caterer, if they were going to be hosting an event at this site, they would go and apply for a Type 83 temporary license.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
What is the actual process or the vetting process that is involved with that?
Unfortunately, I'm not too savvy on the ABC process for the Type 83 license. I can have the applicant come up and speak on that, though.
Thank you.
Applicant.
Hello, if I could have you state your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Anna Aguilar. I'm at 133 South Spring Street in Claremont, California with Wheeler & Wheeler Architects. The owner of the building is not going to hold the ABC license, and as I understand it, I'm not an expert, but as I understand it, each caterer can and probably already holds a license for the alcohol that they're going to serve if they can serve it.
All right, thank you.
Right. Any other questions?
I have some questions. What is the occupancy for the banquet hall? How many people can you have in the banquet hall?
Well, it is an A1 occupancy, so it would be anything over 50 would be allowed, but we don't have that information completely.
Right, I don't have it here.
Okay.
Or the architect
And that's a
might.
two-story building, so where would the banquet hall be located, upstairs or downstairs?
Banquet hall is only consists of a little over 3,000 square feet because of the parking restrictions.
But it's a two-story building. My
It's on the
question is
first
it
floor.
upstairs or downstairs?
First floor.
Where?
On the first floor.
On the first floor.
That's
Okay.
right.
And what would be up in the second floor?
There are existing offices on the second floor.
Okay. And what type of events are you looking for? Well, we don't know how many people can be seated there yet. What type of events are you looking to host in the banquet hall?
He's hoping to host quinceañeras, small wedding type venues, very family oriented.
May I add that the Transit District Overlay Zone is between the E and Court Street, so it's a downtown station area, and it's intended for the highest intensity of development within the city associated with this type of use for entertainment, hospitality, and retail and service uses.
I'm just curious, why did the owner select that site?
He owns the property already.
He
and-
owns the property already,
Yes,
okay.
and it's been vacant for years now, probably about 5 years. It used to be a bank on the first floor, and once they vacated it, he's had real issue trying to get a tenant into the space, and he thought this would be the best use.
So all in that time, he has not been able to attract other professional business offices and so forth?
No, not at all. He's tried. He's actually even considered selling, but to no avail.
Which would be a shame. It is a beautiful building.
It's very beautiful. He thought for that reason, because the building is so pretty, the site is really nice. It just lends itself to an assembly type use, this type of use. So we're hoping that it'll bring in some clientele.
It is a very attractive building. Are there any other intended uses, perhaps? Maybe a small restaurant or meeting rooms, or renting out some of the other rooms for chambers of commerce or something like that?
He would love to, I'm sure. Right now that I know of, no. All of the offices upstairs, most of them are vacant. There used to be a couple of lawyers up there. There's a doctor up there, but it's pretty empty.
And a janitorial service.
Yeah.
Exciting project, yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice.
A restaurant would be great because we don't have very many restaurants in downtown San Bernardino. But I understand that he would have to install a kitchen because
Right.
according to the packet, there is no kitchen other than something to warm up
Right,
food.
it's a small kitchen. It used to be serve as a break room
Mhm.
for the employees of the bank.
And how will the public not be able to go to the second floor? Because there are private offices, and we might want to make sure for safety reasons and everything that nobody has access to.
We could lock, everything would be
Okay.
lockable. And we are kind of sectioning the banquet hall off from the rest of the building with, of course, with the exception of main entrance and the foyer, and then access to the bathroom and the public areas, the warming kitchen
Perfect, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that nobody from,
Right, we
Mrs.
don't want them
Sturkey-
wandering upstairs.
Wandering upstairs. And then I know he is the owner and everything. Is he going to do any little kind of things around and everything to make it more attractive for like banquets, for those wedding pictures and, all kinds of...
We haven't discussed yet because it's already pretty.
It's really
already
beautiful.
pretty. I know he's already painted the building. I think he redid all the signage. He tried to make sure everything's in working order. He just hasn't had any luck attracting tenants.
Right, okay.
What year was the building built? Do you know?
I'm
just curious.
1984.
It
looks old.
Right, because of the design.
Right.
Right, and then I would recommend the owner can turn it into a bed and breakfast or have tea room. If we're successful, they're down at Orange or somewhere.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So, anyways, good luck.
Thank you.
What kind of modifications are going to be made to the first floor to accommodate a banquet hall? Previously, it was a bank and offices and so forth.
It was pretty open, this area, so it's very minimal. We're putting up a couple of partition walls just to section off the area that we would be able to accommodate. And we would have loved to allow the entire first floor to be open for the banquet hall, but we couldn't do it because of the parking restriction. We were very limited on parking, and he couldn't come to an agreement with any of the neighbors to allow reciprocal parking.
Well, I can see where it could be a lovely setting for some quinceañeras and weddings, and there are places on the property that lends itself to photos and so forth and that thing. But the city does have several banquet halls, and that's probably something that I don't know if the owner considered, because he would be, there's a lot of people, because we do have a lot of quinceañeras and a lot of banquet halls and so forth. So that's something for the applicant to consider.
I
Thank
will
you.
let him know. Thank you.
This may more or less maybe for staff or the applicant. As proposed, has it been reviewed by fire for exiting requirements for an assembly use?
Yes, it's already gone through fire department review.
Very good. All right. Thank you.
And one last question. Staff and security that will be on the premises during these hours, how is that going to?
Details of that haven't been discussed yet, but that is something that definitely needs to be addressed, especially during events. So we can write that in or work that up with the city, whatever is necessary.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, just to make sure that everyone's safe and everything,
Sure.
is clean of that. Sure. Perfect. Thank you.
Question, can we decide today on this, because we don't know what the occupancy level, and you just said that there had to be further discussion as to security measures, security cameras and other things. I don't know. To me, it sounds that this application isn't ready for us to decide. What do you say, Oliver?
I know on some of our other, whether it's place with public entertainment or banquet halls, I think we typically have those, we have some of our ABC standard conditions where it talks about exterior lighting, security cameras for monitoring, at least 1 or 2 security guards on premises outside watching the parking lot. I mean, that's something that we could incorporate, into that, if that's something that you desire at this time. If you think 1 or 2 security guards on the exterior. Trying to think, I'll use Pepe as an example. Theirs would require 2 security guards. They also had the surveillance cameras on the outside, and then the accessibility for the police department if they, to have to that. So we could incorporate those if you'd like. Should the commission be inclined to approve this project, subject to adding those conditions of approval, we do have the minutes, and I'll maybe ask for some guidance from legal counsel. If we, our minutes will reflect what those conditions are, added conditions to reflect the security measures, and at that point we could concur with the approval of the minutes, or if you want to make some modifications or amendments, if that's acceptable, then we could do it that way.
Also, the fire department will set the occupancy limit when they review it completely. We just look at, planning division staff just looks at the site for setbacks and for parking. And based on square footage, excuse me.
Any further questions on this item? So, in summary, should we be moving it to the next meeting, or would we just kind of add that onto the approval for next month's minutes?
If I'm hearing the kind of the sentiment of the commissioners, I would recommend add at least 3 conditions. One, I would say 2 security guards to monitor the parking lot. I would also include the surveillance cameras. And then what was the third one?
The lighting.
And the lighting, security lighting. And it was in there somewhere. That's what I would recommend, that we amend the resolution to reflect those 3 conditions in concept, and then like I said, at the next meeting, our minutes would reflect the exact language for that.
With the current proposed hours of operations, would the lighting component be necessary?
Well, they do have nighttime on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What are the hours of operation on the weekend?
It's going to be 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Monday through Thursday, 4 p.m. to 1 on Fridays, and then 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the weekends.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we also want to add that the occupancy be approved by the fire department or whatever, because we don't know how many people?
That is already a standard condition. That's
well, we could put that for clarification, if
Just
you'd
for
like.
clarification as to what it is.
So what the fire department will do is they'll take the square footage of the banquet hall, and they'll do their math, and they'll come out and they'll post their little sign like we have here, says occupancy X amount. And
we are also required to do a calculation for our building and safety plan check review. So all of it will be encompassed in the actual submittal package for permitting.
Perfect. Commissioner Wilbert.
Is it in present condition, is it handicap accessible
Yes.
to current standards?
Yes. And that is
Bathrooms
a
and-
condition of approval. It's already on my list that to double check, to make sure that the existing ADA parking stalls and access meet current requirements.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Chair Sanchez?
Yeah.
So if we can move this forward tonight, I think what we just need to do is recite again the 4 additional conditions of approval, have the applicant agree on the record to those conditions. You can approve it, and then later the paperwork will be done.
Perfect. Does the applicant agree to these amendments, these conditions added to?
We do.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. If no one else wishes to speak on this item, I will close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion for public item number 7.
I'll make a motion, we approve agenda item number 7 with the conditions that reflected that we discussed. And that is adopting resolution number 2019-059, approving conditional use permit 19-15.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All opposed? It passes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 8, if we could have the staff report, please.
Yes. Item number 8 is development permit type P 19-03. The proposed project is for the development and establishment of a donut shop, approximately 1,937 square feet. This would be for Yum Yum Donuts on a parcel that is approximately 0.40 acres. The project site is located at 3003 Northeast Street within the Commercial General Zone and the Transit District Overlay. The development of the site will have some indoor seating. Their hours of operation are for 24 hours, 7 days a week. They will have approximately 3 employees per shift and a total of 3 shifts. They currently have 2 access points. The access points are from Northeast Street and from West 30th Street. Due to after review of the traffic study, it was determined that they should be conditioned to sign for the right turn only on West 30th Street, so that way traffic just goes in and is able to get out on the other side on Northeast Street. This is the location of the area. As you can see across the street, we have currently a 7-Eleven, on the west side, and then it is currently surrounded by an existing residential neighborhood. And then to the south side, we have the 210 freeway. This is an aerial map of the existing site as it is right now. Previously, before, a couple years back, it's been a fairly amount of good years, there was an existing service station. That service station was demolished and all the fueling tanks were removed. So currently right now the site is underutilized, it is vacant, and there is nothing on the site. So this is currently the existing site looking onto the property from West 30th Street and looking onto the property from Northeast Street, sorry. This is looking north on Northeast Street onto the existing residential neighborhood. And this is looking east onto West 30th Street onto the existing residential neighborhood. And as you can see, this is the existing driveway. Of course, they're going to be doing a lot of improvements to the site because the site has been vacant for many years. So they will be doing a lot of off-street improvements as well as on-site improvements, and then doing the improvements to the existing driveway. This is looking west onto Northeast Street. As you can see, this is the existing 7-Eleven that is directly across from where the proposed location wants to go into. This is the site plan of the Yum Yum Donuts. Because it is within the Transit Overlay District, we did incorporate a build-to line in which the building itself is within 15 feet of the major arterial street, which would be Northeast Street and West 30th Street. So they are located within that major street access point. And then right in front, I believe it's around here, there's an existing bus station or bus drop-off area. So people are easily able to go onto the site. And so there's going to be a lot of pedestrian friendly, so that way the neighborhood is able to go onto the property without having to use their vehicles. Additionally, we have proposed some landscaping, some pretty dense landscaping in the back, just so that it doesn't impede onto the neighborhood, the surrounding neighbors, and so that way they are not imposed on by the proposed development. This is the proposed floor plan. There is, as you can see, there's going to be some small areas where there's going to be some existing seating for whoever wants to come in, have their donut and coffee for the day. These are the proposed elevations for the existing site. This is the west elevation. This would be the elevation looking on Northeast Street. So that's going to be one of their main access points. This is looking the south elevation. That would be West 30th Street. This is the east elevation. So that's looking onto the residential neighborhood that's located to the east of that. and then this is looking north to the neighbors at the rear property. This is the conceptual preliminary landscape. They are proposing some pretty dense landscaping, approximately 10-foot setbacks from the neighboring residential properties, and then we do have a lot of landscaping also as well at the front of the property. With that, the recommendation is to adopt Resolution 2019-048, finding the categorical exemption and approving development permit type P 19-03 based on findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. If you have any questions, I'm here, and the applicant is here as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I hereby open public hearing for item number 8, sorry. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? We do have a few that have put in a request. If we could have Carlos Ramos come up.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Ramos, and I live at 3353 North Pershing, 92405. And I just wanted to voice my opposition to this development. We have a donut shop about a block away. It's Marshall Donuts, owned by some very nice people. I go there every morning to get my coffee. And then they have the gas station across the street, which sells coffee and donuts and everything else you need already. So why do we need another donut shop in there? So these people that own this small business, they work hard to make their business. It's a small business. You got to remember that small business is what made America great. I myself, as a small business owner, I own a business here in San Bernardino also. And so I think it's just a big company trying to come in and, get a piece of the pie, So I'm opposed to that, So I just want to say, give the small business a break, Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Ramos.
Thank you.
We also have SOAR.
Hello, good evening. My name is Su Ngoi. I'm the owner of the Marshall Donuts. I just wanna, propose because I see the Yum Yum Donut. They wanna plan to do the, build the next to me. It's too close, I really don't like to competition with the franchise, So I just come here to just say I don't want any Yum Yum Donut. That's all
I have a question. May I ask a question? How long have you been there?
I've been there 8 years already.
And you are also on
Marshall on 3144 North East Street.
East Street. And
Yes.
what is the nearest cross street to this Yum Yum project? 30th.
It's really too close, really close.
So
for
are you,
us.
on which side of 30th are you? Are you on the south side or on the north side?
On North East Street.
Okay. Did you know this? Did we know this? How close would you say they are?
I didn't do, I'm so sorry, I did know that driving through the area to take pictures, I did see that there was within an existing shopping center, there was a donut shop, but I didn't calculate approximately how many feet they are from the property. I would probably say, maybe about, roughly about 1,000 feet. Approximately about
Yeah,
1,000 feet.
What do you say? Do you know how
Around
close?
500 feet Around 500 something
500 feet?
Yes, because I have the customer, she live nearby my shop. She got the mail, the letters from the public hearing. So I don't get any public hearing until she bring me. So I feel shocked, like, because I heard when the big franchise, they want to, big competition with a family business, So I just came here.
And in the 8 years that you have been there, you have been
Eight
a
years.
good community neighbor.
Yeah, I tried, I've been, it's a small.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair. Sir, I have a question of you. What are your hours of operation?
We open at 4 to 9.
4 to 9?
So I go like 5 to 6.
Okay, and this proposed business is asking for 24 hours?
Which
Yes.
one, my shop?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
The proposed business.
Yes, it's 24 hours.
So you're not open 24 hours?
No.
Do you have security at your business?
No, we don't
I
have.
noticed another donut shop up on 40th Street actually has a full-time security person there, so I was curious.
Yeah, but we don't have, money to hiring security there. Yeah.
Okay, so you're only open till 9 p.m.?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question as well.
Yeah.
Do you live in the city of San Bernardino?
Yeah, I live somewhere, no.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much.
If we could have William come up to the podium.
Good evening. This is William. My address 1855 North Clementine Street, Redland, California 92374. Because he is my nephew, so just we don't really want Yum Yum to build and close to him. It's a lot of competition for just very close, and then just a small business for a family. So it's hard for him to survive, support the family. So that's the career they can do it for a living. So that's the one, so just come to help him, so don't want them to, start to open the business, and then there's a lot of competition. So just to help him for, living. That's all.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I could have Claire come up.
Am I on? Oh, okay. It's Claire Clark, C-H-L-A-I-R-E, C-L-A-R-K. I live at 3097 Acacia Avenue in San Bernardino, 92405. And I'm a customer of theirs, and I let them know about this. It's true, but also I have a big concern because there are the off-ramp and an on-ramp to the freeway there, right near that intersection, and also down by H Street a little ways down. So there's a lot of commuters there. And if we get like an increased traffic flow, that is a bad, horrible intersection. I've almost had my car crashed into, I don't know how many times, because people are trying to beat the light. They're trying to go to work. They're trying to come home. They're not paying attention. They're distracted. This is just another distraction in my mind that they would have if they put that there. Also, in regards to the security, this gentleman leases that building. There's a property owner that really needs to have security there. I am just saying they should pay for that. The property owners should. Anyway, it's a great business. I recommend them. They have a lot of food besides donuts, and I think that they don't need that other donut shop there. The Yum Yum also has another site over just on the other side, on the south side, more west of the freeway. So it's like that's really close too, but they're just like not even a minute driving away from where this proposed build is. So that's why I came here, because I'm trying to support our local businesses, and I don't want any more bad traffic right there because it's really dangerous. It's a crazy intersection.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your comments. And we do have one more speaker, Hank Luna. If we could swear you in before you make your comments.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Hank Luna, Hankluna, 3231 Broadmoor Boulevard, San Bernardino, 92404. Good evening. If I may read from this statement that I prepared. In a city faced with the challenges that our city is faced with, and we all know what those are, the prospect of a shiny new business opening in our city, it seems promising and exciting. But fixing a city is not as simple as opening as a few new restaurants or stores opening with a shiny logo and attractive neon lighting. It involves a delicate balance between welcoming new business into the area and respecting and valuing the existing businesses, especially family-owned and operated mom-and-pop businesses. Marshall Donuts is only a block from where the Yum Yum Donuts will be. I really hate the name Yum Yum Donuts, by the way. And it's a family-owned business, family-owned and operated, and known and loved by countless people in the community, myself included. I go there almost every morning, probably more than I should for my cholesterol levels. But I do go often, and it's known not only for its delicious donuts, but for its friendly customer service. The point is that if Yum Yum Donuts opens in the proposed location, Marshall Donuts' very existence will be at risk. How can a city recover from its social and financial challenges by supporting the practice of might makes right, by letting giants like Walmart and Home Depot come in and run the small family-owned and operated businesses out of town? Don't ethics play a role in our city's recovery? I believe it's short-sighted and ethically irresponsible to let a Yum Yum Donuts open in our city so close to a mom-and-pop donut shop, and I am wholeheartedly opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any further comments from the commissioners on this item? Oh, we have one more. Oh, okay.
I've not been sworn in.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Christina M. Marquez, Marquez. My address is 1494 West 9th Street in San Bernardino, 92411. First of all, I really like the landscaping and the architecture that's been shown on this map today. My first question is the proprietor actually a resident of the city of San Bernardino that is putting up this Yum Yum Donuts? My second question is, I'm really for family-run businesses. I would like to see a shiny new Yum Yum Donuts put into the city of San Bernardino. And there's a beautiful parcel located on the corner of Medical Center and Highland that would be the perfect spot to put that new shiny restaurant. So that's my input for right now, and I think that it shouldn't be put right off that 210 freeway where the old 76 gas station used to be. I think it needs to go into, like I said, Medical Center and Highland. It would be a wonderful addition to the 6th Ward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Commissioners, any comments?
Is the applicant here for this project?
Yes, the applicant is here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ausencio Ariza. I'm representing Yum Yum Donuts. The address there is 3003 Northeast Street. And here to answer any of your questions, I guess.
You just heard an invite from one of the audience speakers. What you say?
I think the site is ideal for the location. It's at the end of the overlay, end of the corridor. It's adjacent to transportation. It creates a place, a neighborhood place. A place that's, I think, located in a choice area where it's close to transportation for the driver as well as the pedestrian, as well as for the secondary transportation user would be that bus user. I can't tell you honestly where those boulevards run to, but those things that are created by this site are all beneficial to the city. Competition is a good thing. It's an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to look within to see what you can change to make you more competitive. So I think the competitive argument is not a really strong one. I think the benefits to the city are very much a bigger issue. We fixed the site in that it's no longer a hole in the neighborhood. Excuse me. And some of the street repairs are beneficial to the city as well. Proximity of the driveways to the corner are a little more distant now. And, you know, the backing of Yum Yum Winchell's makes it a good thing in that they can keep the site looking well, secure, and 10 years down the line, it's not going to be looking run down. They have the funds to maintain the location in a good operating condition. We've done every attempt on the site to make it neighborhood friendly. Trash enclosures are not visible from the street. The scale of our shop is very much residential. And our peak hours are neighborhood friendly as well. Early morning, late afternoon, it's not you know, super busy. So you know, when you have kids walking home from school and things like that, they're not encountering these intersections that are you know, high traffic. You know, the gas station that was there, I'm sure, generated much more to and from that site next to a residential than when we would. So yeah, those are my points on that.
Through the chair, I have a few comments. First of all, I'd like to ask you how many employees you plan on employing, and I hope that I'd like to see them all from San Bernardino.
They'll all be locals, and they're all. It's about 3 employees.
Okay.
Per shift.
Per shift, and you've got a few shifts?
Yes, 3 shifts per day.
Okay. And there's another Yum Yum in San Bernardino that also has terrific sandwiches and things like that. So you're going to have a variety of other things besides just donuts, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Very inexpensive dinner items.
Yeah. I'd like to see the improvement on that corner. That corner is set that way for the last, seems like 20 years. And I think it'd be a good improvement. I understand the theory behind the effect of what happens to other businesses, but I agree with you. Competition is good. And I think competition in business is good. That's what we've all strived to do over the years. So I'd like to see that area developed. And I know that also the service station across the street, they serve donuts and they serve cold sandwiches and that type of thing. So if this all comes together, you're going to have some competition, but I think you know what to expect. You know, so.
And it'll just make us sharper. You know, competition, like I said, has you look within and see how you can improve and what you can do to win over those clients. And if you've got what you know the client's looking for, they're going to be visiting your shop. So, you know, the competitive argument, I believe, is a kind of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Wilbur?
Well, yeah. The NENA, chatter on NENA website, NENA is the North End Neighborhood Association. And the chatter on that website today is really in favor of Marshall Donuts. So I just thought I'd put that out there because that's based on a lot of local people. So I just thought I'd put that out there for what that's worth.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm just curious, you know. I mean, I personally, I love to eat donuts. I can eat donuts all day. I eat all kinds of donuts. I've never been to Marshall Donuts. I will stop by. Yes, and I eat Yum Yum Donuts too. And there's just so many opportune locations in San Bernardino. And you folks sensing the opposition from the neighborhood. You know, we all favored having Yum Yum Donuts. Like 40th Street, for example, there's a Starbucks, there's a New Cars Jr. I would like to see a Yum Yum Donut on 40th Street.
We would too.
Yes. You know, perhaps this
And at Highland and Medical Center Drive.
Yes, there you go. That's right,
That would
Highland
be-
Medical
that would be
Center
fine with
Drive.
us.
Yes. You know, I have to agree, this doesn't seem to be a good spot for Yum Yum Donuts at this particular corner.
I'm sorry, what was your comment?
Yeah, my sentiment is with the neighbors, sir, gentlemen.
And why is that? Is it just based on the competitiveness, or is
No,
it something
sir.
based on the...
It's based on the neighborhood, the neighbors, they're doing the neighborly thing, and being a cooperatively neighbor and citizen of the communities that we live in. And that really weave the social fabric and make us a stronger community in building and supporting small family-owned businesses. We want them to survive, to be sustainable. And we're not opposing, I'm sorry, I should not say we, I'm not opposing having Yum Yum Donuts or corporate chain restaurants or corporate America to come in, but with respect to provide to work in synergy and to create an ecology of economic development for the communities that we live in. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may make a point of clarification. This item is a development permit. It's not a conditional use permit. So the matter before you is the construction of a building. This item is before you because it's a vacant lot and we're constructing a new building. If it was Oliver's skateboard shop or Stephanie's nail salon, it would still be in front of you because it's a new building. A restaurant, fast food restaurant, coffee shop, the bookstores, those are permitted by right. If you look in our development code and it says, okay, this is what you're allowed to go into. If there's an existing building, if there was an existing building that they could just go in and occupy, they would not be before you. I just wanted to make that clarification. So you're not here to make a decision on a donut shop and whether or not a donut shop is appropriate there. The matter before you is we have a building that's approximately 2,000 square feet that wants to be constructed on a vacant lot. And so it meets the setbacks, parking, all the other development standards, and that's the recommendation that we're making. We provide the description because typically that's what people want to know. Well, what's going in this new building? We've got 2,000 square feet. We're excited. What's going to go in there? And again, so I just wanted just that point of clarification. We're looking at the project as a development, not as a conditional use permit, and decide whether or not, like a previous, that one was a charter school. And it was only here because the development code requires a charter school to have a CUP. The banquet hall requires a CUP, right? A donut shop does not require a CUP.
And that's not stated on the agenda. It says a request to allow the development, establishment, and operation of a donut shop. And it also doesn't specify or clarify in the recommendation. And if we have these in the future, we need to have that more specific, because this agenda just isn't for us. It is also for all of these residents who have chosen to come here tonight.
And that's noted.
Because if you read this as it is, I don't think anybody here would tell you, well, the agenda is for just to approve the building of a building. That's not what this agenda says.
Any other comments on this? Commissioner Lang?
Yeah. Would you oppose, following up to my colleague's comments, Mr. Quill here, would you oppose to adding a condition that employment of local residents would be required for all 3 shifts? I mean, would you oppose to that, adding as a conditions of approval?
Not at all. That's,
No.
we practice that regularly.
Yes, we do practice it, but sometimes it's not possible. We have to bring in trainers from other locations to train the staff, and until we get locals trained, we would have possibly employees from outside of San Bernardino.
Or maybe worded in a way that best possible efforts be
Yes, best possible efforts.
to that effect, for
Yeah, it
example.
works.
I just don't want to kind of nail the specificity down, but I think but the idea is that that local incentives be provided at firsthand at best efforts recruitment process.
Yes, we prefer to hire within the community.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this item? No? If there's no further comments, I will hereby close public hearing.
Again, just on this one, Chair, I would ask the applicant on the record to agree to abide by that condition as stated by Commissioner Link.
Okay, perfect.
Oh,
Do you guys
absolutely.
agree?
We definitely would hire locals.
Okay, perfect. So that's agreed upon. Unfortunately, not at this time. You guys can step outside to ask those questions, or, yeah. Okay. So I will hereby close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion for this item.
All right. I'll make a motion that the Planning Commission, I think this is adopt, resolution number 2019-048 approving development permit type P 1903 based on the finding of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval and finding that the project is categorically exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act, subject to the amended conditions of approval. Thank you.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
Chair, I'm sorry, can I have a hand raised for the ayes? And a hand raised for the noes.
Do we have a tie? Stephanie, can you read it out?
It was 4 and 3.
I have 3 aye votes, and that was Commissioner Quill, Commissioner Guerrero, and Commissioner Liang. For noes, I have Commissioner Wolbert, Commissioner Lopez, Commissioner Chang, and Vice Chair Jones. So that's a 4-3 vote right now.
Chair, if I may, can I step outside real quick to make a call to see what the procedure is to break this tie?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So.
Thank you,
Can we
Council.
recess? I need to
Yes.
use the restroom.
We will have a brief recess and everything. We'll have a 5-minute recess to confirm and get it. And we're back. So we have conferred, and it states that when there is not a majority vote on a agenda item, that it does not pass. However, if you wanted to make appeals, that could be forwarded to the City Council. Okay?
And just for the record, Chair, I could just read straight from the municipal code. It comes from section 2.22.030, which deals with quorum and vote required for actions of the Planning Commission. And it says, and I quote, "Action granting approval of any matter except general plan amendments and amendments to the municipal code must be taken by a majority vote of commissioners in attendance. And a failure to do so results in an automatic denial of the pending matter." End quote. And I think Stephanie wants to make clarification too.
On the vote, I'd like to make a clarification. So we do have a 4-4 tie. In the original count-off, I had not counted Chair Sanchez's aye as part of that vote, so we are at a 4-4.
Clarification, Council. So it's, when it's a 4-4, it's a no vote? Am I
That is
correct?
correct, because to pass an item, you need a majority, and so the tie does not constitute a majority.
Can we make a motion forwarding this recommendation to the city council to make a determination?
No, this motion has failed.
Thank you.
If I can go on record just to clarify and add in terms of clarity, you know, and to kind of follow up on my colleagues, Commissioner Lopez, and then comments by staff, you know, I think heavy consideration, and careful heavy consideration should be given on the project description. I think, thanks for clarity, Mr. Oliver here. You know, it is before you tonight. It's a construction of a commercial retail building. That's it. It has nothing to do with the type of business that would be established there. 2 years from now, it could be a different operating buyer operator, for example. So tonight on this item, I think we have issues with, you know, clarity in terms of getting the project description out to the public. Like, for example, I think I brought this up on item number 5. You know, it's describing it within a building. It suggests that there's an existing building at the site. So that's number 1. Number 2, this is a construction of a commercial retail building, not a donut shop building. And I'm not sure why the type of use would be described in the project description as, you know, for example, if it went abutting like a residential district, for example, this wouldn't even be here. It would be at the design review committee, for example. And so I think heavy, careful consideration needs to be given and explained to the public and to the Planning Commission in terms of the project description, please. That's my comment. Thank you.
And we appreciate that as staff. And, you know, without wanting to belabor the thought, we try to provide as much information as we can. We attending these meetings regularly. We listen to kind of some of the questions that you ask, what we believe you may be inclined to ask, and we try to anticipate what the questions are going to be. And so in all of these, you know, there's, you know, how much information is not enough, too much, or whatever the case is. And so we will we'll work on that, and, you know, we'll keep plugging away.
We just ask for clarity in terms of providing the description to explain what we're deciding on. So simply here, again, this is just a very simple retail building, no more than 1,900 square foot, in a neighborhood in the proper designation, complies with all the standard requirements, for example, parking, circulation, landscaping, lighting, security, all the appurtenances that goes with a simple project neighborhood scale of this size, notwithstanding neighborhood in terms of, you know, issues, establishment. This is just a simple request for construction development of a commercial building. So it's unfortunate we're at that this crossroad, and so I apologize that this has to come to this juncture.
I think you did a really good job of
So
explaining the situation. It's exactly
Thank
what
you.
it is.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 9. If we could have the staff report on that, please.
Are we ready? Item number 9 is development permit type P 19-05. This is a proposal for an industrial building, approximately 73,300 square feet on the southeast corner of 5th Street and Lankershim Avenue within the industrial light IL zone, and also the airport overlay AD5 district. You can see that the project site is located approximately 400 feet north of the airport. The structure itself will be designed for 2 tenant spaces, approximately 34,720 square feet and 38,580 square feet respectively. 59 parking spaces were required for this building, but 86 parking spaces are proposed. All of the requirements of the city's general plan and development code have been accomplished through this project. The site is currently undeveloped, no major vegetation other than just some ruderal vegetation, no mature trees present that need to be removed prior to development. Again, this is just a speculative building at this point for 2 small industrial tenants. We have some elevations, conceptual at this point, but will definitely be a good addition to the neighborhood. This is our proposed floor plan and the conceptual landscape plan, so you can see that it will be well screened from 5th Street and Lankershim. Our recommendation tonight is that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2019-060, finding the approval of development permit type P 19-05, exempt from CEQA review pursuant to section 15332 of the CEQA guidelines, and approving development permit type P 19-05 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. I can take any questions that you have.
Thank you. I hereby open public hearing for this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item? No? Okay. Commissioners, any comments on this? No? I do actually have a few questions for this industrial warehouse. Any ideas of who might be moving in, or is it just kind of being built at the moment?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. Okay. I saw some landscaping. Is there any street improvement in case there is going to be a lot, of...
The typical to the half width of the street fronting both Lankershim and 5th Street.
Okay.
Also, curb gutter sidewalk as our typical requirements.
Perfect. And lighting as well with security cameras, just,
Yes.
Yes? Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. Any other comments on this agenda item? If not, I will hereby close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item number 9.
I second the motion.
All right. I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It passes yes. All right. Perfect. Okay. Moving on to item number 10. If we could have the staff report.
If we could hold on for one moment, wait for Travis to come back. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And he's back. Okay, so if we could have the staff report.
We're too efficient, I apologize. Item number 10 this evening is subdivision 19-09, that's for tentative parcel map 20112, and development permit type P 1904. Request this evening is to develop 2 buildings, one for medical office, approximately 11,000 square feet, and one general office, which would be approximately 5,500 square feet. This is a property located at 755 East Gilbert. It's at the southwest corner of Gilbert Street and Windsor Drive. It's just over 2 acres in size and is zoned commercial office. This is an aerial of the property. Currently, there's one older older residential structure that would be demolished as part of this proposal, while the bulk of the properties you can see to the western side is undeveloped. It does back up to residential neighborhoods on the south and west side, and there are other similar office uses on the north side and then across Windsor Drive. The property, as I mentioned, is zoned for commercial office, and as you can see again here, residential to the south and west of the property, and other similar commercial office properties and users to the north and east of the site. The proposal in front of you this evening, I said with the two buildings, the general office building currently has no proposed tenant. That's the smaller of the two buildings. The medical office building is specifically being developed for the Children's Behavioral Health Department. That's for San Bernardino County. The existing site, as you can see, this is coming from the corner of Windsor and Gilbert. This is the older structure I mentioned on the property that would be demolished as part of this proposal. And then this is coming from the western side of the property looking east. This is the undeveloped portion of the site. It's just adjacent to the older home. The proposal in front of us this evening, as mentioned, two buildings. The parking area for the use would be primarily located along the south end of the property, adjacent to some of the residential access points along Windsor Drive and Gilbert. The parking area, just so that we can note, the area immediately closest to the residential on both sides would actually be a gated area specific for employee parking only, so a little bit more secured, slightly less impact along the residences. And then the larger of the two buildings on the western side is for the county office, with the other building being the unassigned one at the time. The floor plan that we have is for the behavioral health facility. Similar, it's very hard to read here, but you do have outside of the building little garden areas on both the east and west ends, offices towards the south end, and more of the meeting rooms for the people coming into the facility on the northern end of the property, closer to Gilbert Street. The elevations for the building, the elevations have only been crafted for the larger of the buildings at this time, because it's the only one with the current tenant, but they would be consistent among the two buildings once they're both developed. This, just so we have, this is the main entry. This is actually towards the interior of the site, the image on the north. The one look at the bottom of this image is actually what you would see along Gilbert Street. So, you know, large windows across the biggest expanse to kind of connect it with the street. And then the properties on the south side fronting the parking lot, and then this side here with just the garden area, not a lot of the open windows, so not as much impact on the residences that are to the west of the property. And then preliminary landscaping plan, as typical with the previous projects we looked at this evening. You know, somewhere between 10 and 15, because it does fluctuate a little bit, minimum of 10 setbacks along the residential sides that would be fully landscaped to help buffer those residences. Larger setbacks along the two streets, there's a 15-foot requirement, and then fully landscaped out throughout the rest of the parking area. And you see kind of the two larger areas, which are the garden spaces, just to the left and right of the largest building. And the request this evening is to adopt Resolution 2019-049. That would be finding the project categorically exempt, again, as infill development, and then approving the subdivision and the development permit based off the findings and subject to the recommended conditions. I would like to make one note. We are requesting a slight modification to one of the conditions this evening. That would be on page 13 of the resolution. It's specifically going to be condition number 27E. It's in reference to the requirement for undergrounding of the utilities. This is a standard requirement that we have in place on any new development. There are several points where this may not be required if the property meets certain qualifications. What we're asking to do so that we can allow the developer to explore those exemptions with our city engineer is simply to add similar language to the condition F just below it. It would still say all existing overhead utilities adjacent to or traversing the site on either side of the street shall be placed underground in accordance with section 19.20030 of the Development Code. We would simply add as directed by the city engineer, so that if the project is approved, the developer can then work with the city engineer to review those exemptions to see if there is a qualification that would allow them to not have to underground the existing utilities. And with that, I will open it to any questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Martin?
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to open it up.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to open it up to public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Commissioner Lang.
Thank you. Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Are there exemptions that we could cite instead of, say, comma, as directed by city engineer, for example?
There's about 4 or 5 exemptions in the code in that specific section.
Can we
that's
say
referenced.
that pursuant to these sections, for example, council? I just don't want to have this sort of like worded in the way that it would give the city engineer autonomy to say absolute underground, where the code would allow exemptions, for example.
It's still, the condition as it's written now, and we wouldn't propose changing this with that minor addition, it still references that specific subsection 30 of Chapter 1920, which does have the exemptions laid out very clearly. There's about 4 or 5 of them, so trying to put it in the condition would be a little bit cumbersome, trying to interpret what's going to be required, but it would still reference those directly. It wouldn't. It would simply give the engineer or clarify the fact that the city engineer has the authority to exempt it pursuant to one of those requirements. It's not giving him autonomy to just,
Well,
make
yeah,
up
and I
or
think,
disregard that.
No, I understand, and I think if we could just add another comma as directed to city staff or city engineer, maybe add another comma pursuant to development code requirements, maybe to that effect.
What I was saying is it does already say that. It says in accordance with Section 1920030 of the Development Code. So unless I'm misunderstanding, I believe
Okay.
it does reference that section.
I don't
similar to
have
how
I
you're
don't have the
requesting it.
verbiage in front of me, but I'm just saying. But you get the idea.
Yeah. What it does specifically say is the overhead utilities adjacent or traversing the site on either side of the street shall be placed underground in accordance with Section 1920030 of the Development Code. That is where the requirement for undergrounding and the exemptions to it are specifically addressed. All we're simply looking to add is that it would be then the direction of the city engineer to determine whether or not the project met one of those exemptions. It's just clarifying who would be the responsible authority for making that determination.
That's fine. I mean, there are 2 major follow-up on the project descriptions, very simple, and I just want to make sure that it's not going to go one way so that we have clarity that these are permitted rights pursuant to the Development Code and not as directed or per an individual, for example.
I believe in this instance, the intention with how we're asking to rephrase this is not to remove any of the applicable exemptions or to add anything that's not already codified. It's simply in the code right now. It does not say who is the authority for making that determination. Because this is ultimately a public works improvement, because these would be utilities in the right-of-way, we're simply trying to clarify that it is the authority of the city engineer to make that determination that one of these conditions has been met.
Understood, but the Development Code itself does not grant the approval and rests with the city engineer. I believe it rests with other authority, for example. So are we citing from the Development Code requirements, for example?
That Development Code requirement and that specific exemption, the way that it's written, it does say you have to underground, in other words, unless you meet one of these exemptions. But what it does not say specifically is whose authority is it to make that determination. We believe in this instance, because it is an improvement in the right-of-way, and that is the purview of the Public Works Department, that it would be appropriate for the city engineer to be clarified as the authority making that call, as it is ultimately their responsibility for that property, and they have the most expertise with those requirements.
I just kind of want to shout out on those of clarity, for example. I mean, we just don't want it to be read in a different way where if this project is entitled to undergrounding pursuant to KVA size of the voltage, for example, they're automatically exempt, where city engineer wouldn't even be required or have a say in this, for example. So if it's in the right description, then the project qualifies for this exemption without any argument.
Yeah, it's not, again, our intention is not to create a debate about
I'm I'm not,
you say
I'm
it's
not
visible-
suggesting, just
Yeah.
the way it's worded, that's
Mhm.
all. That's why I think I shout out to the council for maybe, providing clarity on that. So that's number one. Number two,
Mhm.
it seems like as proposed, this could be accomplished at staff level at DRC, would it not?
Again,
What's driven this project here at this level?
As with the previous project, the use isn't the issue here. Ultimately, these are medical and general office facilities. Those are by right uses. It is the fact, and I understand we could provide similar clarification on future projects, and we will make sure that we're better about that.
Thank you.
These are new buildings, new non-residential uses that are being constructed adjacent to residentially zoned and used property. And our development code in its current state does require any new non-residential project that is being proposed adjacent to existing residentially zoned property does require planning commission approval.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions on this item?
I just had one quick question in
Yes.
regards to the additional unit that is going to be proposed for
Mhm.
future use.
Mhm.
When they decide to go ahead and utilize that building, will that building require a specific permit for the type of use that they will use, and which will come back to the planning commission, or will they be able to continually just move forward with the proposed?
As long as the use proceeds as it's anticipated, which would be some type of medical general office, then those uses specifically are considered by right in our development code because the facility would already be developed or already be entitled to be constructed. The use itself would require no further review other than our zoning clearance that we provide at a staff level. This is simply for the building itself. If they did come in as an example for a use that itself required some type of discretionary approval, a conditional use permit or otherwise, then that item would have to come back to you. But other than that, as long as it maintains just its general office use, it would be approved. The development is approved this evening, potentially, and then the use would just be able to move in.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other further comments? I do have a question as well.
Yes.
We seem to be having a slight little issue up in northern San Bernardino about a TAD building
Mhm.
being built of that neighborhood
Mhm.
is not really quite happy about that. In this case, having that medical office built, the behavioral one, that
Mhm.
seems fine. However, could we get, if they're going to be doing a TAD building or another medical one that seems, I don't know what's the right word, but could we get approval from planning and the neighborhood and everything, put that in there, that just, if it's a general office, then that's fine, but if it's something else, to come through these
I believe
avenues?
at this point, and again, operating under the development code as it's written today,
Mhm.
unless the use itself, whatever that future user may be, and unless it is specifically defined as requiring that discretionary approval, conditional use permit or otherwise, there really would be no recourse for us to bring it forward to say we have to request this. It would, as with any office use or your typical restaurant uses or general retail, anything like that, if it's permitted in the zoning district, it's just permitted. There is no additional review at that point.
Okay.
I had the same question as well, because there
Mhm.
was a lot of concern about the proposed welfare office that was going to be built on the central northern section of San
Mhm.
Bernardino, and there's a really big stigmatism behind welfare buildings and the
Mhm.
type of negative crowd that they would invite into the neighborhood. So that's why I was kind of curious about the second proposed building, because I see the county is going to be leasing or operating the first one. So
Yeah,
we were
as I was stating, really, unless the use itself for some reason is determined to require that review, we simply don't have the authority. If someone comes in at the counter and they want to put in a restaurant, it's an existing building, we can't just say, yeah, we're not sure about this one, you might have some issues, we want to take it to this other body. That's really not the appropriate practice. What I would clarify, and I don't know if anyone is familiar with this area, the county has a similar facility that they developed in the last couple of years. on a kind of a mirrored property immediately across Windsor, and there are other facilities within kind of this same overall county department, and the office properties immediately to the north. So it's really a little bit more of an expansion of similar uses that are already operating in that general area. To my knowledge, there haven't been any issues with any of the uses up there.
Great, so it's conforming basically with the other
Yes.
practical uses that are within.
This is the last of the office properties that hadn't been developed kind of in that area. I said it was a mostly vacant site with one home on it, which on 2 acres is fairly low impact.
Yeah.
They're simply looking to do similar uses to what's already in there, but just on this last property.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
If there are no further comments on this item, I will hereby close public hearing, and I will entertain a motion. There's no other speakers, correct? Yeah.
We do have the applicant here if you have any questions. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, of course. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Brandon Sudweeks, 27720 Jefferson Avenue in Temecula. Correct. Yep.
The package has said that they're going to be, it's a county building for behavioral health, providing services to children. Can you explain what type of, it's listed as a medical office. I'm imagining that it is outpatient counseling and other.
That's
If you could fill us in on that.
That's correct. It's a pediatric facility for children. As Travis pointed out, we've designed a really neat facility for the neighborhood and the community where we've incorporated therapy gardens outdoors and healing gardens next to the waiting area, so that it's a really well incorporated facility from that standpoint. As far as what they're going to be doing in there, you're exactly right. It's counseling for children.
And the ages of the children?
Primarily younger children from the ages of 4 up to the early teens.
Mm-hmm. And is this a 2-story?
This is all single-story building.
It's a single story?
Both structures.
So what would be the staffing and what professional staffing?
Yeah, so this is going to bring a lot of high-paying jobs to the community, which is great. You're anticipating about 30 new employees for this facility, most of them, requiring a degree in psychology or psychiatry.
Okay. Your hours of operation would be 8 to 5?
Yeah, standard hours.
3. Okay. And the other building, the one that would be separate, is that going to be owned by the county, or is it being owned by?
It'll be owned by us.
By the county?
No, by us as the
Oh,
developer.
by you guys. And then the county will be paying a lease, I guess, or signing?
They're just signing a lease. They're a tenant in our property.
So what do you expect, since you are going to be the owner of the property and the buildings, that the other tenants would be? I know that it was stated that there is none right now. But I know that you don't build anything without some vision in the future as to who the tenants would be. So what do you anticipate, or what will you be working towards?
A high-quality, high-end medical or general office building.
Does this building sit right up to any residences?
So just referencing the site plan I have back up on screen here, the building for the county office is the larger one located just on the left side of the diagram, this one here. The smaller building, about half the size, is the one located on the right-hand side. The closest point that they do abut residences is just on the western property line here, which is set back about 15 feet from the property line. That's going to be part of the landscape setback, and then it's just actually a very small portion of the building's frontage that's even that close. The bulk of the building is set back behind one of those garden areas. So most of it is quite a bit more, approximately 35 feet or so. On the south side, the entire south frontage of the property, which abuts approximately, I believe, 6 or 7 residences, that is all going to be the parking area. So the buildings are actually directed up towards the street away from those. And half of that parking area, as I was noting, is the secured parking area just for the employees. So it would be less traffic going in and out of there, generally just beginning and ends of the day. You wouldn't have the clients or anyone like that circling through that area.
In and out of the parking area would be from Gilbert.
There is a driveway roughly centered on the property on Gilbert Street, and then there would be one on Windsor Avenue as well, just below the kind of the wishbone median.
And those, where the property goes up to the 6, you said there were 6 residences, there's going to be some type of fencing to separate?
Yes, there would be the between 6 and 8 foot block wall with some kind of metal decorative treatment along the top, and then in that 10 to 15 foot area that's just inside that wall, it would be fully landscaped for additional screening.
The other thing is that area already has other developments at our county. I know that the County Juvenile Hall is there. There's another program there in front of that. The DA has their child prosecutors there for offenses against children and so forth. So it seems like it would fit. It's a new building. It's an attractive building. I'm sure that the county is a good neighbor. My concern is the street, because it is a narrow street, and I think it's only one lane going and one lane coming, especially when it comes to that wild turn that goes into Pacific. Do we have any problems there right now before this building goes up in terms of traffic, or what do you foresee?
Nothing that I'm aware of, and as a part of this project, we did have them complete a traffic study for the site. They were required to, based off the trip generation that was anticipated, based off the size of the buildings and the land use. And as a result of that traffic study, they were found that there were going to be no significant impacts on any of either the roadway segments or the intersections within the immediate vicinity of the site. So they weren't required to do any additional, there was no mitigation required, no improvements to the roadway, because everything is still anticipated to operate at an acceptable level of service for that area.
So the street doesn't have to be fixed, the sidewalks do not need to be repaired?
That is a separate issue than traffic impacts. That's a standard property maintenance improvement. And the actual, any dedications that may be required, any improvements along their street frontages and only on their side of the street, so simply up to the center line, curb, gutter, sidewalk, if it's missing or damaged, needs to be put in or replaced. Those are all standard requirements regardless of whether there's any traffic impacts of a project. The impacts or the improvements that were looked at, whether they were necessary as part of that study, would be if any additional things, in off-site areas, or if there was going to be an intersection, within the vicinity that was impacted, whether improvements would need to be done there. But this project, as I mentioned, did not require any of that based off of the approved study.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question for staff or the applicant.
Yes.
I know that there's a school not too far within the proximity of the proposed development, Anton Elementary School. Will that site be negatively impacted by this proposed project, or has there been like a traffic study or anything, or is it warranted to have one completed for the impact it may have to the school?
Yes.
Or
as I was explaining with Commissioner Lopez's question, there was a traffic study required for this project because they did trigger the threshold for trips generated within the AM or PM peak hours. That study was completed. It was reviewed and approved by our traffic engineer, and it was found in the study that there would be no significant impacts to either the intersections that were studied within the vicinity or the roadway segments within the vicinity. There was nothing that kicked it up to a level of significance where any property was going to be overly impacted or any improvements would have to be done to mitigate it.
One more question. I know you're not here representing the county per se. Would you know what the county's expectation as to the service level, how many children they anticipate seeing on a daily basis? because and families and so forth. What is the traffic going to be coming in and out of that business?
You know, most of the facility is built out as standard offices. You know, you're going to have probably 10 to 12 full-time staff members and probably closer to 15 to 20 counselors in the building. So you know, it's going to be a regular flow of a medical office building. I can't speak to, I mean, they didn't, there's not any large community rooms where it could potentially bring in hundreds of people at one time. This is just a very standard medical office, counseling center type facility.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Oh, if you'd like to come up.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm the traffic study on...
Please state your
name.
name.
My name. Sandra Ibarra. I'm actually the council member for this ward, and I'm also a resident in the second ward, 579 West 21st Street. Okay, on July 17th, in July I had contacted our engineer, Mr. Alex Kista, here present, because there was concern of the speeding on Gilbert. In his email dated July 17th, it says, based on the available data collected, there were 17 accidents in the area during the past period between September 2016 and July 2018. 4 of these were speed-related. There is an elementary school in the area. I know I have asked Mr. Alex Kista to please help us make that area safe for the children that are crossing over from Windsor and Gilbert over to the elementary school. That hasn't happened yet, but that is my concern. We're looking into traffic calming areas, but just know that as of July 17th, email I received, there were 17 accidents in that area. My other concern is if there was an RFP submitted to the county, that RFP should have said, how many people they're expecting to go in and out of that area. If you were to drive on Gilbert eastbound towards Windsor, people speed down that street. We do need to have some traffic calming in that corner as well, just to keep it safe for the neighborhood. But that is my concern coming to you as somebody who's constantly getting complaints from constituents from that area. Specifically, we mentioned on Pacific and Gilbert where it curves. We've had people go over those curves and die, unfortunately. I hate to see more accidents happening, especially if they're peak hours. But that's just, I just wanted to share that with you because this is an email I got from our engineer who did the traffic study for me.
I have a question for you, Ms. Ibarra.
Yes.
What was the recent stat? You said 13 motor vehicle crashes occurring July of 2019?
2016.
2016. That's the most current that they had?
Correct.
And
well, the email I got was this year, July 2019.
And those occurred between Gilbert from Waterman before they hit baseline?
I'm not sure. But it was in that area. I know there was an accident on Crestview and Gilbert not too long ago. People who drive that area, I don't know if it's still there. There was a memorial for the longest time. But that is, I believe, is it less than a block from this location?
I'm not sure on which street it's
I think it might be.
Sounds
She's
like
the
it's
neighborhood
right in
association
front.
president. So we did have a fatality on that corner. And it's for the speeding that's going on right on Gilbert Avenue.
Is that something that the staff for the planning can address, or do we have to go to the police, or what?
I would clarify that the traffic study generally would not include, my understanding and my experience with them, generally would not include any police information or information on incidences within the area. What the study itself was analyzing, and this would be consistent with any of the projects that we've done, is the trip generation of the project. What the streets are what kind of levels of vehicles is the street currently handling, any delays at the associated intersections, and what the project itself would be adding to that, and whether, based simply off those metrics, would the project result in one of those areas not operating sufficiently. It doesn't address the matters specifically of speeding or any incidences or if there was an accident in other areas. Certainly the commissioners are welcome at their discretion to consider that. There may be something that could be done about it, but nothing was required or proposed out of the study specifically.
I would think that you would consider something like that. If I were the applicant, I would want to know about speeding and so forth, because they're going to be concerns about their staff, their clients' families, and so forth. But I would think something like that would be current. It's not necessary. I'm not saying that it's something that we need to maybe use to make this final decision. But if we're welcoming an applicant to the city who is going to build something very nice that is going to provide services to a lot of children in need, and investing a lot of money in doing so, we'd want to make sure that the street was proper and the speeding was addressed and so forth. And I think those are a considerable amount of crashes that have occurred. Yes, sir. What you say?
I just want to enlighten the commissioners about the traffic study itself. The traffic study, like Trevor said, it's just actually it addresses the study of the trip generation of what this building or by square footage will generate of traffic, and what is the effect of that traffic before the project is built on the streets and intersections that surrounded that area. And then when the project is built, supposedly it's built 2019, what is the effect of that building and the occupants of that building on the street segments and the intersections, and then what is this project affect 35 years from now. So the study itself, is just give you what is the project before it's been built, when it's built, and 35 years, what is the effect will be on the streets. And it will determine if these intersections will be acting as an acceptable level, which is, we have different levels for intersections from A to F. So if the project is, affect in the intersection F or D, there's mitigation. So we explore with the applicant what the mitigation is. So again, I haven't seen this traffic study for this particular project. We get a lot of traffic studies, but it seems like, the traffic study that's been prepared did suggest that there is no effect on the intersections, a negative effect on the intersections or the street segment itself. But the traffic study does not consider any accidents or any speed within the area. And that's how the traffic study has been generated.
I can appreciate all that. I'm only suggesting that we also have to consider some real data, which the police can probably apply. And I think the main concern here was speeding. Not the number of cars, not the number of intersection stops or anything like that, but that there seems to be a problem with speeding. And because of the way that street is built, where there then is a sharp turn that becomes specific and leads to where the school children are, I would suggest that we also need to consider those type of stats when we make these traffic studies decisions.
Speeding is always, it's enforced by law enforcement, and they're the one that enforce speed within the city streets. And also, there is no engineering can alternate or, driver's behavior on these areas. Speeding is going to be regardless of what you do.
And that's why I'm asking the question, where does it go from here? Who has the responsibility for alerting the PD or getting input or letting them know we have a new tenant coming that is going to increase the number of people driving down that street? So if it's not our job, then whose job is it to inform and maybe take a look at that speeding problem? That's all I'm suggesting.
Okay.
to answer you.
And by that expression, he's saying, I don't know who. And so I
No,
could
it's not I
ask the
don't know.
question,
I cannot answer
then
that
whose job
question.
is it? We're all in this together. Then whose job is it?
Well,
We're all in this
I would say, as with any area in the city with existing developments or vacant areas, it's really going to be the properties within that area. Certainly, right now, none of us are over there. If there was something going on, we wouldn't be able to respond. It would need to be the existing developments. I would want to trust that, the new user going in, certainly if they had any issues or saw that there were any issues, they're also driving those streets. They would want to be safe, and they would express the concern if they came up.
Then I think what they're saying, Ms. Ibarra, is that as you as councilwoman need to inform the police that there might be a speeding and we have a new tenant. And I would also tell the applicant that if you do see those problems arise while you're there, then to please call and let them know there is a problem.
If I may, just as maybe some insight or input, when we bring projects before you, we're looking at the development code standards, and there's some thresholds. And an example I use as an example is alcohol-related uses. Okay, we had a couple of applications here a while back where the development code specifically states a distance from sensitive uses. As an example, whenever there's a CUP that involves alcohol, we route that to the police department because our development code has certain thresholds that we need to verify through the police department. They verify the census tract, over-concentration or lack of concentration, if you will, the reporting districts of the crime. So they'll tell us what the crime rates are citywide and how they are in that particular reporting district, and again, the sensitive uses. And so we could then take those, because our code requires, and we have to make those specific findings. And our code, as an example, says if you're more than 20% of the crime rate of the citywide reporting rate, then that's a grounds for a denial, if you will. Or if you're closer than 500 feet, that's grounds as well. So if we were inclined to explore that, and we're looking at traffic, not just the volume, which we already do with our traffic studies, what is the project going to generate from traffic amounts, then there would need to be other thresholds for patterns of speed and accident, incident, and those kinds of things. We don't have those kinds of things at our disposal so that we could evaluate for projects other than just having to know a particular area, what comes out through public comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? If not, I will close public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 10 as read and stated on the record by staff.
Do I have a second?
Just to be clear, I just want to make sure with what you said, that includes the amended condition?
Yeah, they included the amended conditions as read into the record by staff.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Then we have a second.
And I'll second that.
Perfect. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No? All right. The motion passes. Thank you, staff.
Thank you.
And then moving on to the last agenda item, item number 11. If we could
Sorry,
have.
still me.
Yeah.
All right, item 11 this evening is Development Code Amendment 1902. This is for accessory dwelling units. This is an item we brought the last two meetings for discussion. With the last meeting, and I believe it was distributed to the commissioners, the packet for the previous month, we did have the completed conditions drafted. There were a few items that, based off our consultation with our legal counsel, we needed some clarification on some of the language, just as we were working to implement some of the, we'll say, grayer areas in the state's legislation. We've since done that, so the section we're presenting to you tonight is fundamentally the same with a couple couple points of clarification. Just a quick recap. This is very similar PowerPoint to last month, so I'll go quickly. This is what we're doing now is really bringing our development code into compliance with the state's legislation for accessory dwelling units. Over the last few years, there have been a number of bills that the state's passed clarifying language that goes back many, many years. As a result of that new language being passed, or that new legislation, any city or any jurisdiction that had a code regulating that type of development that didn't comply with those new standards, which is unlikely since they changed them, that was immediately rendered null and void upon its effective date. So the section that we've been operating under currently since the beginning of 2018 has simply been enforcing the state's requirements. And as a result of that, we've had some issues we've had to work through at the counter where we do have those gray areas in the legislation. That's what we're trying to codify this evening, just to clarify everything. The big thing with these units, as I had explained before, is that they are now, you cannot have any kind of discretionary review. So if someone, as an example, you will never see an accessory dwelling unit be brought to the commission. Because it is prohibited by the state. They have to be ministerial actions. You can prescribe very clear standards for the development of the units, and then if a project meets those standards, it's an approval, just like it would be with a building permit. The big changes that the state had done, again, was limiting the size on them. It's really 1,200 square feet, or if they're attached, 50% of the main unit. With the intention of keeping these accessory, you're not having a larger accessory unit, because then it starts to not be named appropriately. And also, it eliminated any existing structures if you're being converted, or if they're being converted to one, be that a detached garage or something else. Whatever the setbacks are of the structure, that's what they are. You can't require anything additional. Because it's not really feasible to be relocating the structures to move them over 1.5 feet or whatever it may be. Parking requirements were reduced. We can really just cap it at 1 space per unit now, and there are a number of exemptions to that. If there's appropriate transit in the area, if it's part of an existing structure you're converting, so you're not adding new square footage, if there's car shares in the area, just as examples. What we're trying to do, just to clarify, and again, this didn't really change much from the previous version, is that detached units, while they are capped at 1,200 square feet, we want to do similar standard for the attached units and keep those capped also at 50% of the primary unit. Again, with the intention of keeping them the secondary structure. Detached units, we do want to require that they can be no taller than the primary unit, so you don't have a main house and then an attached unit in the back that's 20 feet taller. And one thing that we are allowed the opportunity by the state, it's something we do want to implement, is requiring owner occupancy. So these don't become properties where it's just all rental. You would have to have the homeowner living in either the primary or the accessory unit at their choosing. And to enforce that, we are looking to implement a covenant that would be required on the property. That would be prior to any building permits being issued for the structure. And that covenant would really reiterate the language that's in the section presented before you, including the requirement for the owner occupancy. And that would be something that would then be recorded on the title of the property. The couple more of the changes that we're looking at with the detached units specifically. For accessory structures right now in general, garages, sheds, anything like that, we have 0 setback requirements from sides and rear. For the main house, we do have requirements of 5 feet on the sides and 15 on the rear. What we're looking to do with these is find the middle ground on that. We do understand if you're trying to build an extra unit, properties are only so big. If we don't try to be realistic about the setback requirements, then they'll never be happening, and then the state will pass new legislation. But we do want to make sure that things are in place to ensure, that they're safe structures, that they have proper egress. So we're looking to just set it at a minimum 5 foot on any of the side and rear property lines. That would allow egress for building code requirements, fire code requirements. And what we are asking this evening then is to adopt the resolution 2019-030. That would be forwarding a recommendation to the council for the adoption of the development code and finding that this project is statutorily exempt from any environmental review. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Actually, 2 questions.
Yes.
The covenant would pass on to a new buyer if a new buyer was to purchased that property?
That would be correct, yes. It would be
That is
recorded
correct?
onto the property itself.
Okay. The secondary house, I have a little issue with it being a two-story. Like if you have a two-story and you're building a secondary house and it's two-story, but it's right up to the property line, wouldn't that be an issue of maybe the neighboring property of that secondary house being right on the property line, a two-story?
I mean, that's something that we did discuss, and I know we've looked at with other projects. To clarify, nothing would ever be right on the property line. It would always be the 5 feet, but I
5 foot
understand that
setback.
that still can be close if you have a larger structure. As it was, that's something that we certainly, take your input on, and we're more than willing to amend any of these if the commission chooses. That's part of the reason we have brought this forward several times.
Okay. Well,
That would be something I think we're open to.
Okay, then also, what that means, they can be approved without coming through a commission, so actually neighbors would not be able to contest or protest?
That's correct. The way that the state's legislation was written is that we have absolutely no discretion on this. Once standards are adopted, and if we didn't adopt these standards, we would have to continue to operate under the state's requirements, and the state sets no setback requirements. So we're actually trying to do something at least a little bit more to the needs of our city. But our really ability to look at these things is right here and now in the standards. What we set now, all an applicant has to do is come in, as long as they comply with this, they would submit their building plans, we would review it. If it conforms to this, conforms to the building code, they would be issued a permit for the construction. So if we do have a concern, I would say we need to, we do need to make sure that we're reviewing this and address it within this language.
Okay. Well, personally, I would like to see the secondary house being a single story, just a suggestion. So.
I also agree with Commissioner Quill, single story, because you're talking about building very close to an adjoining property line, and if it's a two-story, you're looking into people's backyards, and we kind of like that privacy. The other thing against that I don't feel comfortable with a two-story is it will block people's view. For example, where I live, I have a view of the mountains, Ann Little Mountain and so forth, and it's a satisfying view. But if I had a second story, I'm sure that would block, and that's one of the reasons why people buy their homes where they buy their home. So that's also my suggestion. I'm not for secondary structures.
I would clarify, I mean, if that is the direction that the commission as a whole supports, I think we could change that. It would be one specific, there are two notations about height in the standards, so I do want to be clear between the two of them. The maximum permitted height for attached units, when any structure or addition is attached to the home, it's really part of that primary structure. So if you looked at it, the intention is that you would never know it's a separate unit. It's just the one house. It may just happen to have some division inside. So I would say that would really only be applicable to the detached structures. If that's something we do want to implement, I would maybe ask if we could get a response from all of the commissioners.
Yes. Any comments on that, having it, if it's detached, being one story, attached, 2 stories? Is everyone in favor of making that kind of amendment? Okay. Yeah? Everyone's good with that? Commissioner Wilbert?
Yes, since last meeting, I've had a number of discussions with people, mainly outside the city, regarding ADUs. And I was given a copy of, and I wasn't looking for City of Costa Mesa specifically, but I made copies of it, and I'd like to pass it out. I tell you why it really lists or identifies some things. My biggest thing is destroying community continuity. And it could be done real quick. I'm going to just give you 2 perfect examples. I have a large lot. I've got an 800 square foot self-contained pool house. Up until 10 years ago, we'd get a knock on the door from, I assume, code. They wanted to inspect it personally to make sure it was or it wasn't what it is. That disappeared, and no contact since then. So that's that whole value of checks and balances disappeared. Now, next door, a resident built a very nice grandma house, legal.
Yes.
It's a very nice place. That was 12 years ago. He has since sold the property. It's on its third ownership. The front house is a rental. The grandma house is a rental. There's no connection between them. And this actually doesn't serve the purpose of what we're talking about in ADU. So I would like to pass this out. I made a lot of notes on it. I think there's some things that we could look at and consider. There's a lot of areas like to provide a convent that meets approval of the city attorney shall be recorded in the property and enforce these requirements.
And that is included in the draft that you have in front of you this evening.
I don't have a draft in front of me.
It was part of the packet that was distributed. I apologize, I don't have an extra copy in front of me.
Today?
It was part of the item, the agenda item that was distributed on Thursday, that was sent out to all the commissioners. The specific language is part of the draft resolution.
It was sent out with the agenda?
Along with all of the items that you've seen this evening, the packet specifically for this item includes that draft language, and it does require. We are to kind of get to one of your points. We are aware we don't want to double the houses in every neighborhood and say it's all rental. We understand that would have a very strong potential for a negative impact in the neighborhood. So we have included language in there, as the state has allowed us to require the covenant that does mandate that one of the units, either the primary or the accessory, would have to be owner occupied. And if that's, unless there's a desire to eliminate that, that would be included in the standards that we recommend to the council this evening.
Good. I haven't seen it, but could this be distributed? Should we look at this? I mean, I think there's some information that I don't know if I made enough copies or not, to be honest with you.
I think it's a good suggestion. There's no harm in comparing with others. It might be
I mean,
checklist to check
I'll be
off.
honest, in drafting this, I reviewed countless
So I
cities
think maybe
along
those
with the state
copies
myself.
should be
So-
given to the staff included.
I don't know how much. I probably didn't make
sure that
enough.
the staff should get one.
Let's see how far it goes. Yeah, it's interesting because in a lot of my discussions, there's one city that requires a 600-foot clear setback from an ADU. Well, you know, that just isn't cut. And there's another city that requires, I'm not proposing that, I'm just saying that somehow it gets off board. And there's another city that wants a $17,000 development fee, which obviously that is not going to fly. But we still want to make it, like you say, within parameters that we're not going to get fired on or contested or whatever. So I liked some of the ideas I highlighted.
Can I ask very quick? I was skimming it as I was just walking back up here. Is it specifically the items that you've starred that are the ones that you're most concerned with?
Those are the ones that hit me in the head. And
if I can just kind of run through some of them real quick, what's jumped out at me so far. The first one, item A, specifically does talk about the covenant for owner occupancy, or specifically the owner occupancy requirement. The second one, restricting them as far as lot sizes, requiring certain lot sizes, that was something that we had discussed in part of the process, but my direct discussions with our legal counsel that was advising us on this is that has been, we'll say, a little dicey. There's a lot of cities that have started to do that, saying as an example, if you have a smaller lot, then the square footage of the ADU can only be so much. If you have a 12,000 square foot lot, then it can be the full 1,200. It's not very clear that that's going to be something that's going to stick. And we were cautioned against that. Item C, specifically limiting the rental terms of 30 days, that's more of a short-term rental ordinance. That's something I don't know if the city has any intention at the moment of taking up. I know it's always an item of discussion with the Airbnbs and things like that, but it's really beyond the scope, as I would see it, of the ADU specifically. This is meant to look at development standards for the units, not the operational standards, so much. D is pretty self-explanatory. I think that's part of the state's legislation, and there is a line in the standards specifically. This is in Exhibit D. I would say D1B under development, it does say you have to have just one single-family residence on the property. So that you would never be able to develop an ADU if you had more or less than that. Looking at number 4, it looks, if I'm reading it correctly, it looks like they're possibly reducing the parking requirement if the unit is under 400 square feet. That's not something that we had considered. We looked at it as, regardless of the size, someone's going to be living there. So we would require just the one space. But because of some of the limitations the state's put in place, I believe we may have some option if we wanted to go more, if you have more bedrooms, but it gets kind of a little difficult that way. And the section on the car share, I actually spoke to council about this as well, and that was one of the items that we had clarified in the month between the meetings here, because the way that the state has worded things, it says car share vehicle located within a block of the property, and vehicles move. So one day it complies, they don't need it. Another day, somebody got the car and drove off. Now they would need parking.
Right.
So we clarified it to actually say it was a car share vehicle location. So it was the facility where you would be able to get that vehicle, just to make that a little bit clearer. And then yeah, I'm looking, it looks like item I refers to design standards for it. I mean, I see they're mentioning that no setbacks would be required if it's within an existing garage, and that's already a requirement by the state because any converted existing structure has no setback allowances. So that seems like something more that they're reiterating from the state. And they have similar language about the setback at least 5 feet from the side and rear. And it does speak a little bit about the kind of residential design guidelines needing to comply with that. And that is something, we didn't reference design guidelines specifically within this section, but we do have the section under 2A3 under architectural compatibility, which means they would have to maintain a compatible exterior appearance with the primary structure. And then the last one, each residential parcel may contain only one accessory dwelling unit. That is kind of a reiteration of the state's requirement, and that's included in the section 1C under density. You can only ever have one primary and one accessory. That's a mandate. There is no room for interpretation on that.
Good.
I'm sorry, I think I missed the ones that weren't highlighted. To go back to that, because thank you for bringing it back up. I didn't want to skip over that one. Like I said, that was something that we considered if it is the direction that the commissioners would like to take. And without a formal vote, I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding, so I believe that's where we want to go. What we can do, and I believe this would still comply with what I had discussed with council, as long as the standard is clear within this section, then we're able to put a fixed numerical limit. We do have limitations for accessory structures right now in our existing code. Typically, that's referring to sheds, garages, pool houses, as Commissioner Wilbert had mentioned, and those are limited to 16 feet in height or a single story. I think we could, if it is your direction, change. Let me make sure I have the right number here. It would be under development standards, so number 2, letter C for detached, and then under number 3, sub 3, under maximum height, we can say that the accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed 1 story or 16 feet in height, if that is something the commissioners are supportive of.
Based on what's in, and thank you, Commissioner Wilbert, for bringing this to our attention. I really appreciate that for your time and effort to kind of bring this, made copies. It's going out of your way to do this. It seems to me that K really suggests that you could possibly have a second-story unit, depending on the, the location you're in, subject to, the staff review approval. I think that's a great idea, where we don't just superimpose, limit like 1 story and cookie cutter for the entire city, and if we have this way out as subject to staff discretion based on the subject location, for example. And so that subject location may come into play to allow construction of the second story as proposed, where if we're going to go ahead and with this regimented, restriction with 1 story, 16 feet period, it doesn't appear that there would be options for an appeal. There are a lot of room to play with, and I think the code as submitted here should be as flexible as much as possible to give consideration to other locations, because we're all live in different parts, factions of the cities where we don't really have the same environment. And so the subject to this sort of discretion process would open up that opportunities for individuals. I think it seems that here would make at least to me, makes a correct suggestions in a way that would allow individuals options, and I like that better approach in terms of, from a code standpoint, and not, maximize 16 feet, you can't do this, you can't do that, Do we really want to be a box development code, box-in development code? I think giving that flexibility would really alter and flavor the landscape various part and throughout the city in terms of development purposes. Would you agree?
If I may clarify, and I have a feeling we're going to say something very similar, that's certainly a point we did consider, and we are aware of. It's a 62 square mile city, and no standard in our code is going to apply with perfect intentions on every property. So with other projects, absolutely, as we can, we do try to take those considerations in mind.
Right. And I have to say, I have to add, you've done a real good job in terms of explaining that. I mean, on this particular development code amendment, I have to give you that.
Thank you.
The county adopted the same ordinance, ADU,
Mhm.
closest to the state requirements, but here, I mean, we're doing a little bit different.
We are trying to. I mean, we've taken a little more time, but I look at that as a positive, because we're trying to really take something that's going to be more reflective of what San Bernardino needs, not what somebody in Sacramento thinks. With that in mind, though, and understanding that yes, there always are going to be little nuances. This property, maybe it makes sense if you have the properties as large as Commissioner Wilbert had mentioned, then maybe having 2-story, you're not looking down on someone's. But the real situation in this one is we do have to actually come up with a fixed standard. If we do something like you're suggesting, and like we've done with the other projects this evening, we're creating a discretionary action without question, and that is something that is absolutely prohibited by the state's legislation. So we did our best with the original language, saying that it can't exceed the height of the primary unit. So if the main house was 1 story, then it would be 1 story. If the second main house was 2, then it could be 2, to try to keep some of that consistency. But really, we could only limit it to the property in question. As soon as we start to look at, well, what does the rest of the neighborhood look like? Now we're starting to impose our judgment on it. That is a discretionary action, and we cannot do that.
So
I concur. the box is really what we are trying to go for.
I
It is
understand.
what we basically are allowed to do. So,
Yeah.
of course, it's not what any of us want to do, but that is the directive from Sacramento.
We get to decide how big the box is, but there's still a
So,
box.
so,
That's what it is.
so within the height limitations in terms of the zoning designation, wouldn't that, where does that come into play?
That is actually the language from the previous version, what was presented last month. I did originally have that as what is permitted by the base zoning district. And that was something that I got a very explicit correction on from council when we were reviewing it. And that's because it's still, while it creates a consistent standard for all the properties in that zoning district, it's not consistent for all properties where an ADU can be constructed. And the standards need to be written flat across the board for the entire city. So even at that point, there was still a little bit of, I don't know if it's discretion exactly. I don't have my definition in front of me, but there's still some variation on who can do what, and these are supposed to really be the absolute same standards for every property.
Well, I just have to say,
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure.
live in a neighborhood of single-story homes, and if my neighbor was to put up a two-story home, it would ruin the view that I have. So I would probably favor going in a direction there. If you have a single-story home, you're limited to a secondary single-story home.
If we had, I mean, and that's how it was originally written, but what the existing language, barring any amendments, what it would provide for is if that property had a two-story home, then they could do a two-story. But if they only had a single-story, it's basically primary, accessory, or primary, accessory.
I get it.
But if the concern is how it integrates with other neighbors, I know my parents have a two-story house. The adjacent properties aren't two-story. So, not every house in the block, is always consistent. If that's still the concern, then possibly a more fixed standard would be the route the commissioners would choose to go in.
Assuming you're building a single-family structure, I mean, you still wouldn't be subject to planning commission review.
That's correct.
So,
Any property right now that's just one unit, it's not even subject to staff level review,
Right.
other than the plan check process and conformance with the code. We use no discretion on that.
so if this ADU comes in as a second story, how is that different from building I mean, why would that be subject to staff's discretion or any review process? It would be governed, couldn't it be governed consistent with the zoning designation prescribed?
Are you saying a second story on an existing home or a detached?
It's second story on an existing home.
The way that that is covered in the section. Under 2B for the attached units, the maximum height, the way it's written, and this was something that I did confer on, it just says that it shall not cause the overall structure, so that the primary home, to exceed 2 1/2 stories or 35 feet, which is, for all of our single-family zoning districts, that is the maximum height. So really, I believe, unless I'm misunderstanding, it doesn't sound like there's real debate on if you have something attached to the primary home, because you're still looking at it, and that is the house. It's if you have this other building out here, do you want that towering over it? And the primary home will have a greater setback requirement, so you won't have, the property looking right down onto someone else. It's really just a question, if I'm understanding correctly, of how do we limit or regulate the height of detached structures, those that would be placed, typically at the rear of the property.
I would suggest they be single-story unless it's attached to the existing home, and if the home is a two-story, then it's attached to that.
Is that,
more in the direction that most of us are still kind of going towards, that it's detached, one story. If it's attached and it's a two-story, then so it could be uniformed and everything, not have it's odd.
So we could change the standard just under maximum height, which is specifically Exhibit D 2C number 3, just to say that we can say the detached accessory dwelling unit shall not exceed the height of 1 story or 16 feet. if that's something that everyone is supportive of.
I think most commissioners are in favor of that.
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
If I may add,
Yes.
hearing what everyone has said, I think also, I could be wrong, but I think also in attached, what we want to say is 2.5 story max if the primary is 2.5, but not if it's 1 story. Is that right? Am I hearing the sentiment right?
Are we? What? Yeah. What I want to clarify on that.
Okay.
So as an example, it sounds like you're saying if someone wanted to do an addition, an attached ADU as an addition to the primary unit, they could never construct that taller, and unless it's already, unless the primary unit is already at that height. What anyone could come do right now, what Chantal was trying to clarify, is that if you had a single-story home right now and you just wanted to come in and do a room addition, you'd be able to add that second story, just permitted in the code. So, yeah, our attempt was to want to stay consistent with that, because functionally, aesthetically, it would be no different. But mm-hmm. I mean, potentially. There's obviously countless variations on it. But
personally, I'd try and find some wording that allows the secondary to be either standalone, the same height as the existing house, a single story, or attached to the 2-story house.
So you're saying that in no instance, whether it's attached or detached, should an accessory unit be above the ground level? Or I want to make sure I'm...
I know. No, what I'm trying to say is the secondary house would be single story if the primary house is single story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If the primary house is 2-story,
mm-hmm.
if you attach and build onto the side of it,
mm-hmm.
Your secondary portion could be added on to that.
Yeah, and that's what we have written, slightly different verbiage, but that's what we have in...
About adding a second story to an existing single-story house.
Yeah, that's what we have in the existing code. That's something, what I was trying to clarify is, it's a little bit of an odd thing. You would think I have a single-story house, why would I just build up? But somebody could have, maybe they like their yard, they got a pool, they don't want to take that out. Anybody just with a single-family residence right now could come in and just say, I have my single-story home, I'm going up. Yeah. And they could come in, they comply with the height requirement, which is frankly fairly straightforward for a single-family home, and they would be permitted. There would be no issue there. So we weren't trying to do anything different on the ADUs there.
I think that upset my neighbors.
Well, that's unfortunately something we can't put in the code.
I mean, it seems to me that you're trying to box in, but at the same time, you're really not boxing in. Again, I think in the conditions in that surrounding area, or the existing conditions, if you have a single story and you want to add on a second story, it seems appropriate.
I'm sorry.
And if you were to do an attached
mm-hmm.
second story at ADU,
mm-hmm.
It seems that would be appropriate.
And that's what we allow for in here. So I'm not sure if...
And so I guess I'm trying to say that it's so not boxed in, but at the same time...
I mean, certainly we tried to... When we put this together, we're trying to look at it with some common sense. Really, state didn't really do a lot of help with that, just to be frank. So it's really, what do we think they're meaning? What would we think is appropriate? With basically the same considerations that the commissioners have said this evening. What it really boils down to, and with my discussions with council, is whatever we craft here, obviously we don't want to do something that's complete left field, something that's clearly against what the state's limiting. But the key thing is we just have to put some fixed standard. If it says this height, if it says same height as this structure, it just needs to be fixed in some way. We can't have anything where this property would do it one way, this property would do it another way. So that's why we can limit, additions to one story, we can limit them to the height of the main story, we can say they can all be two-story, as long as we pick one, and that's what we stick with for every property in the city.
I think we had it at an earlier draft of detached, one story. If it's two-story, then, you know, it can continue being two-story via detachment and whatnot.
So if that's what the commissioners want to do, we can move forward. We can vote on it as, you know, amended, as discussed here. And as a reminder, because this is an amendment to the development code, we're going to need 5 votes out of 8 in order to pass this.
Yes. Okay. And before we adjourn and everything, we do have a few speakers. If I could have Jonathan, if you want to come up to speak. If I could have you state your name and your address.
My name is Jonathan Seamson. I'm 1265 Millbrook Road in Corona. I'm a developer in the area and just wanted to make my observation and give props to the staff for spending time to go through and put this together. It's very important for us as developers to be able to have a understanding, or a contractor to have an understanding of what can be done in the city, and, you know, clarifying some of the details in regards to the development code that were expanded upon with the state, but following the state's intent for ADUs is going to be important for a lot of homeowners out there that want to add addition to, you know, support their family members or children living at home, or, you know, helping with some affordable housing out there for Southern California is very important. I just want to thank the staff for the time that they're spending here, and if possible, I'd like to defer my additional time to the other public speaker. He's got some couple of additional details he wanted to go through in regards to the code.
No, of course. Yeah, you have 3 minutes each person. So
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. If we could have Everett.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Everett. Well, it's past my bedtime. I apologize. My name is Everett Kang, E-V-E-R-I-T-T. Last name is Kang, K-A-N-G. I am an architect. I'm sorry, 29222 Dakota Drive in Valencia, 91 miles away from here. I am here in representing a stakeholder. And I also want to commend the commission for looking into this. I also want to commend the staff for the work that they put in. I also want to give you a different point of view. Being an architect, unfortunately, we're sometimes at the other end of the, you know, ball field, and we are always looking for loopholes. And so, if I may, I want to kind of share with you why I think the staff did an excellent job on your ADU. I have the privilege of, maybe a curse, of actually doing 4 ADUs in the last, or receiving work of 4 ADUs in the last month and a half in 4 different jurisdictions: Anaheim, Santa Clarita, Thousand Oaks, and the great city of LA. And I could tell you there's 2 that just deferred right to the state code, which tons of loopholes. The others are so restrictive, there's lawsuits happening. And finally, we have yours that is really going to solve the problem that the state has recognized. And so, again, I want to commend you on that. If I may address, again, from a different point of view, the concerns that Commissioner Wilbert had and Commissioner Liang had, there's a lot of things to kind of distill this down to its bare essence. We're talking about a ministerial review, so it takes all the decision-making out of your hands. So really, it's like, what can we do in crafting language to make sure that you're going to get the kind of product you want? And again, I'm on the opposite side trying to look for those loopholes to satisfy my client. So really, we're trying to craft something that will take care of all that, since you don't have that discretionary review. So if we may be so bold as to make some suggestions from, again, the opposite side of the view, if you would be entertained, I'd like to do that. So the first thing is, you mentioned 2 stories. I think there's a simple way we could get around that. You can limit one story for a detached ADU. However, if someone wants to do a 2-story ADU and someone's blessed with a large property like Commissioner Wilbert is, you could do a 2-story so long as it's compliant with the underlying zoning. So you keep it 20 feet away from your rear yard, you could build a 2-story, but you could do that anyway in the underlying zoning. So other than that, if I want to divert from that underlying zoning, I'm 1-story. And I think all your, again, from from the homeowners that are trying to do this, I think that would be very appreciative. You're giving them an opportunity to build something. Oh, by the way, of the 4 that I have currently going, not a single one of them are renting. They are for their elderly, their child that can't find a job. And one other thing I have to throw in there, I really like the fact that you are being generous and being consistent with the state square footage requirement. You cannot fit in. Can I take the next person's 3 minutes? Is that okay? Chair?
It's fine.
I appreciate that, Chair. You cannot fit ADA requirements in an ADU if you restrict the square footage. You just can't. And there's some jurisdiction, Thousand Oaks, for example, that has done that, and now that's why they're getting into some legal trouble with that. So again, we commend you about that. There is one area that was written in your current draft of the ordinance that we would like you to look at, and that has to do with the front setback of a detached ADU. Currently, it is written, the accessory dwelling unit shall be located behind the primary dwelling unit. If you can imagine all the cul-de-sac lots that you have in your beautiful city here, they're all pie-shaped lots. A lot of them, or even in a rectangular lot that has a severe rear slope. You don't have a rear yard, but you may have a nice, generous side yard. So on those particular lots, cul-de-sacs, or those lots with a big rear slope, you are now restricted from putting any kind of ADU because you have to put it behind your unit. So if you could, we would like to recommend the following. The accessory dwelling unit should be located towards the interior side and the rear property lines behind the front wall plane of the primary dwelling unit and behind any required fencing. So what that does for you is allows that homeowner that has that nice generous lot with a big side yard to build that one-story ADU towards the side of the property where that's where all they have their yard. It's still behind the fence line and it's still secondary to the frontage of the primary dwelling unit. That way you solve the intent of the government code, and you've given your residents an opportunity to provide housing for somebody that may be, elderly or whatnot and such. So we would strongly recommend, and we hope that you would consider that kind of language. And again, of course, we will always be looking at this language to see if there's any loopholes, and quite frankly, that's the only one we can find. The 2-story that you brought up, we brought that up as well in our studies. So I'm glad it came up here. I would also recommend that you look at the bedroom count. If you look at the bedroom count, please allow at least 2 bedrooms for a small family of mom, dad, and 2 kids, and an ADU. That will suffice as well. So if you could do that for us, we would greatly appreciate that. And again, we want to commend the staff for all their hard work. It is a great ordinance. And again, cursed with reading 4 of these and becoming a quasi-expert at all this, but this is the best one we've read, and it's truly going to help you out the community and provide the affordable housing and probably help your arena as well. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. And we have one last speaker, Felix.
My name is Felix Robles, GFR Homes. I'm the developer. Well, I think Everett touched on, all the bases that we were looking at. What we're trying to do is build new homes in the city and be able to take advantage of the ADU units. And this all came about. I'm going to be 70 years old, so when I went to my last reunion, I asked my my high school friends, "What do you guys do all day when you guys are retired?" Because I'm not retired. And they said, "Well, we just like to spend time with the grandkids." They come over their homes, and it just dawned on me, if we could do something like that in the city of San Bernardino, where we can put these ADU units in the back. And I asked them, would you like doing something like that? They said, we sell our house all day long to live in the back. We can come and go. The grandkids can go back home, but they're right next to us. So I think it's an opportunity for the city, and you're right. Staff did put it together, everything together that I think will work out there. But that's what we're looking to do. So I think you'd be the only city in California that I know of that's doing new homes. I mean, as Everett said, there are resale homes that people are adding units in the back, but for new home development and putting 2 on a lot, I don't know of anybody doing it. So you would be the first. And as long as we can get this right, I mean, I think it could work, and I think it puts you guys on the map, put the city on the map, and I've had a lot of, as Aaron, I've known Aaron for years, and actually Aaron was my planner way back when, and so, you know, we've bought a lot of property in San Bernardino, and this is the first time I think we can do it. We're up in the north section with some land that we have, but I think even if we took advantage of some of the areas in infill, as long as these ordinances come out, you know, it can work. But we're looking for the opportunity to see if we can do this to the city, bring this type of a two on a lot. I think it's going to serve a lot of purposes, especially people that are elderly and don't want to go into a home like me. I told my kids, you're not putting me in a home. I'll put a unit in the back and I'm going to stay there. And so I think it's just overall one of the best things the state ever did. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Do we have any more comments on this?
Question for council. So what evidence one of our guests stated, would that be inconsistent with state code mandated, for example?
Can you clarify which statement?
In terms of putting it behind the fence on the side?
I think that would be fine.
If I can try to just address the 3 points that Everett made, just to clarify. As far as the bedroom count, I've seen in other jurisdictions where they have tried to limit to 1, 2 bedrooms, whatever it may be. We're simply looking at the square footage as the state has allowed. We're not looking. We will look at the floor plan as part of the review process as we do, but we're not putting a limitation on it. Just like right now, we have a minimum square footage for a home, but we don't say how many bedrooms you have to have in it or how many bedrooms you can have in it. So we're leaving that completely open as long as they comply with the other physical standards. As far as, I believe you brought up the point about, if it's a larger lot or if the home is bigger, they could do some of that, or then you could defer to what the zoning district says. That still goes to a point where we're using discretion on the property. And I did discuss several of those kind of similar ideas with council. And again, anything that runs counter to we have a fixed standard for this type of development, my understanding from my conversations is that's just not going to fly, or we're really going to hang ourselves out there, and risk one of those challenges. So I don't know that there is really a defensible way that we could do that and say, yeah, you got a bigger lot, your home's bigger, there's nobody behind you, you're not going to be blocking something, so sure, you build taller. I think that's just going to be problematic. As far as the location on the homes, obviously again, 62 square mile city, very drastic differences between the styles of home, lots we have, your traditional little 6,000 square foot box downtown, your 20,000, on a cul-de-sac up in the north end. We tried to craft a standard that we just felt was going to best ensure that these remain an accessory to the primary thing. We didn't want to put another home right along the frontage. Because then you're really impacting the neighborhood a lot more. Certainly, we understand there are differences in properties. If it is the commission's will, we can work to address that language, to understand that there may be a unique layout or constraint on a property. But I would leave that to your discretion.
So, I'm sorry, one last comment. That kind of brings me back to what I've said earlier, and I know we want to be boxed in, but I think a code where, I think if we reflect upon what comments made by Everett, that if you have a big lot, if you move it in a way where you could be outside of that, the current ADU influence, therefore you can go as a two-story, for example. So that's kind of where my point is, where we're so boxed in, where if you go into a large lot up in my district, Fifth Ward, you have RL and RE, where now you're 50 feet away, you're still subject to the one story, for example, and that is not going to cut it.
If I may, that was the item that I was saying, again, we are using the discretion on that. That was something I was saying we really couldn't do. The one that I was referencing where we could, kind of see what the commissioners prefer is, I believe I can, I paraphrase, let's see if I can get it close. Instead of requiring that the detached is simply completely behind the structure, if you happen to have a lot where, it is more of a side yard, it's a little shallower, as long as it's behind the plane of the structure and outside of any required setbacks for the primary, outside, 15 if it's street sides, 25 on the front, then you could build it, instead of being like this, you could build it like this. That's really the only one, and I think we could do that, unless I'm mistaken, because we're still putting a fixed standard for 25 feet back or behind the plane of the house or 15 feet off a street, and that would still work.
I would agree. I think that's a good point. Also, it brought up the ADA, building a house with some of the disability qualities in it and so on. So would that affect the square footage, or what was
I mean, the 1,200 that we're limiting it at, that's the amount that the state limits it at. We have abilities to regulate that down if there's some defensible reason for it, but we can't exceed that, period.
And they can be one bedroom or two bedrooms, correct?
Right now, we weren't proposing any language that would actually, restrict or impose a certain bedroom count. We'd leave it to the creativity of the architects to figure out what's appropriate.
They're professionals,
Yeah.
They've studied this.
Yeah. Whatever may be appropriate. Obviously, there's certain room size requirements, and there's what's going to be, practical and what's going to be marketable. So we leave that to their discretion.
Brought up some really good points.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. That's really well taken.
Can I say one last thing?
Yes.
Sorry. I'm going to say a good thing. I just want to say thank you for your patience in working with us on educating us on ADU. I'm an architect, and I actually done ADUs in LA. And the ADUs that my friends and I, architect friends and I, we designed are beautiful in West LA, and they were detached. And the family of 4 turned the garage into an accessory unit, right? And here's another thing too. I am really, really glad the state make this a code, because being Chinese, I'll make fun of my my family member. My crazy uncle in Montreal Park 25 years ago decided to turn his own garage into a dwelling unit, and while he cooked all the stir fries and burned the garage down, as you can imagine. This is what happens when it's not regulated.
Did you sign off on that?
When it's regulated, we keep the public safe.
Yeah.
The ultimate goal of ADU is public safety.
Yeah,
It's fire, life,
that is
egress.
really what we're trying
And
to
then
stick with as well.
planning can regulate it. You guys can have an oversight, provide regulation, provide public safety on the planning side, all the way to building safety department and to fire department as well. So having ADU as a building part of the code, I am really happy actually, so I support it. Thank you.
We also wanted to keep in mind the seriousness of the housing crisis. So we did want to build in some flexibility for that.
I'm aware of that too. That's especially like say in LA, there's a huge shortage of rental, an affordable rental, and that's why people turn to ADU as a resource and a solution, and also regulate it, and that's really important because I have Chinese friends. Once again, I'll make fun of my own people. They just put in toilets they take one garage, 600 square feet, split it into 2 rental units, add 2 toilets, right, and showers. Or my crazy uncle turned in the building with no toilets, no showers, no bathrooms, none whatsoever, right? Because it's not regulated. When you do that, when you regulate it, in, people will have to go through the building department. So it's a good thing.
Travis, do you feel comfortable with what we've discussed tonight? Or since I'm not the point on this, do you want to run this by Todd?
I think I would like to clarify first, I mean, we have the language on how we want to revise the height limitation for the detached structures, and I think we had a general consensus on that. To the other points that were brought up, we're not regulating the bedroom count in any way. It's simply square footage, and how it fits, it fits. I still would stress from my conversations, I don't think we really can put in any kind of real flexible standard on the heights based off lot size or underlying zone or anything. That's every time I mentioned anything like that, I got shot down. So I really wouldn't recommend that. Did we want to look at changing the requirement, understanding there may be some uniquely shaped lots? Is that something that the commission is supportive of? I mean, we can work out some language very quickly.
Are you suggesting, I'm sorry, Chair, are you suggesting that when you say unique,
something that may have more of a
lots.
side yard, less of a rear yard, so maybe they would want to put the structure, next to it.
Right, and
Especially some of the lots, in the north end that are a little different, some in the hillsides that may not, maybe the property
right, I mean, I
drops
just
and you
want
can't
to
put
caution that we're not
Mhm.
maybe written in a way that we would approve it without a variance, or a variance would be required. I mean, I'm not certain where we're going with that when you're talking about like a unique lot or circumstance.
I mean something that's just shallower that wouldn't be able to put a whole new structure behind the main house. If we want to explore something like that, I would maybe ask for just a couple moments and we can confer just on some language. I don't want to try to read it out just off the top of my head.
That would be great because there are so many variations.
If that's something that we do want to give an allowance, if you can't locate it behind the structure, what else could you do?
Mhm.
If we could have just maybe a couple minutes, we can try to do that. I mean, would we like to take that back? I will say I think I understand fairly clearly from council, but if we want to take something like that back, we can
That might be better.
come back a fourth time.
Yeah, just to get it right.
Okay.
In an abundance of caution, I'm not the point that reviewed this ordinance, a colleague of mine did. And so if the commission desires, we can continue this item to the next meeting. I can have my colleague look at it, go over some draft language, bring it back. That way it's airtight.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm here next month either way.
Yeah. All right. So we'll have a motion to continue this onto the next meeting. And yeah, okay. We don't have to vote on that, do we? Or we
You
do?
do.
Okay. All in favor of continuing this to the next meeting? Oh, do we have a motion? Let's see.
I'll make a motion.
There we go. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. And then all in favor of continuing this for the next meeting?
Aye.
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 All right. All opposed?
Aye.
All right. Perfect. We will adjourn the meeting here. Do we have any planning commission reports or announcements from staff or? Yes. Commissioner
Oliver.
Wilbert.
When, yeah, when is a leading question. When are we going to know whether we are going to be, as commissioners, the building code arbitrators? City council said we were. That's what I heard.
So for the benefit of the planning commission, there was a code amendment that was taken to council at the last meeting. And what they were doing is they were blending the Board of Building Appeals with the planning commission. That actually went to council. Council approved it. It goes on September 18th for the second reading. And then it'll take 30 days before it goes into effect. And then once that goes into effect, staff will provide training to all the planning commissioners. We have appeals on building issues very, very, very seldom. Maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years.
Wow.
So it's nothing you'll see on a regular basis. But once it does get passed, we'll provide all the information to you.
Thank
Are
you.
we lucky?
Do you feel lucky?
Any other comments? Yes.
So,
Commissioner Lang.
I believe you were going to report back to the commission that with the traffic stop sign on Belmont 1, and then the other...
Little League Drive.
Little League Drive, for example, yeah. So if you would.
Yes, if I may. If you recall, we had a subdivision that was approved a couple of meetings ago on Belmont. There was some discussion about traffic signs. That is under review at the moment. The applicant is, along with subdivisions, they have to come back with a development permit that's approved by that's reviewed for consideration by the Planning Commission. As part of that application, the applicant has a traffic engineer that's putting together that analysis in terms of whether or not there's a warrant for that. That will be reviewed by our traffic engineer, and that will be included as part of our recommendation on that development permit as to the need for that those two stop signs or not. The other one, I am working with Public Works on the improvements to Little League Drive. We had that Jack in the Box that was approved there on the if it's south or west, wherever that curve is. That particular project did involve some off-site improvements to the center line of the street. The Rancho Palma that's on the opposite side, the vacant lot, which runs from the soccer fields down to almost, the lot's irregular shape, comes down to a point pretty close to that location. That was conditioned through the subdivisions to improve the street to the center line on the other side. So I'm working with Public Works to put together an exhibit that I can bring back to show you kind of how those two will align. And so I am working on that particular item for you.
Perfect. Any other comments or announcements? I do have one. This weekend on Saturday, they will have, for the Mexican Independence, they will be having an event downtown. They'll have some food trucks, I believe. They'll have folklorico dancing, and everyone obviously is welcome. It is free entry, and they'll have mariachis and such like that. So it starts from 6 to, I believe, 11, and open to all. And then also, I just wanted to make an announcement that the San Bernardino Museum, they are open. They do little tours. I was fortunate enough to go, and it's really quite beautiful. So if you have an opportunity, you guys should visit. All right. So that is, I think, it for announcements. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do we have?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, a second?
Second.
Very quick for those seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.